Story 1. A cheating wife was furious when my daughter refused to cover up her terrible affair with him. Hey there, I'm a 33-year-old guy and my wife is also 33. About a month ago, my wife confessed to a drunken one-night stand with two strangers we both encountered during a night of heavy partying while on an extended trip in Europe. It feels surreal even as I write this. Here's some background. We've been a couple for 11 years and have been married for the past 2 years. My wife has been battling severe depression for the last 5 years, feeling discontent with her career and many of her life choices. I've done my best to support her through all of this, but over the past 2 years, I've grown weary from trying to be her rock. During this time, she's turned to alcohol as a coping mechanism for her issues. I believe our relationship was definitely stuck in a rut during this period. We sought help from a couples counselor who advised us to pursue our dream life together in an attempt to rekindle our enthusiasm for life and our relationship. Hey, my wife always had this dream of living abroad for a while, so after some persuasion, I decided to back her up on this. I took a year-long break from my job to join her on this overseas working holiday. I knew it wasn't the best financial decision, but she supported my career in the past, even moving around our home country to accommodate my work commitments. So I willingly agreed to support her this time. Long story short, her depression only got worse 4 months into our adventure. One evening, we went out for dinner and ended up meeting some American tourists, 3 guys and a girl. We had a blast getting really drunk with them. They were super friendly and even bought us a few rounds. At the end of the night, they invited us to continue the party at their Airbnb. I remember being at their place, munching on pizza and playing a board game. Somehow, the game morphed into truth or dare. I recall stepping away to use the restroom, and when I came back, I saw my girlfriend locked in a kiss with one of the guys. I was ready to explode in fury and tackle the guy, but everyone around me tried to defuse the situation, saying it was just part of the game. My wife echoed their sentiments, claiming it was all in good fun. But it wasn't fun for me. I had just witnessed the woman I adore being passionately kissed by a guy we'd only met a few hours earlier. I told her we needed to leave right then and there, and we promptly headed home. We took an Uber, and the ride back was filled with uncomfortable silence. She apologized, blaming the alcohol and the game for her actions. When we got home that night, I immediately crashed. I woke up around 4 a.m. and noticed my wife wasn't beside me. I assumed she was in the bathroom, so I went to check, but she wasn't there. I figured she might be in the kitchen, so I didn't bother searching further. I returned to bed, intending to go back to sleep, but before I did, I wanted to check my phone, only to find it wasn't where I'd left it. That's when I fully woke up and realized something was off. My phone was nowhere to be found, and my wife was missing too. Maybe she was browsing my phone in the kitchen, I thought. I went to check the kitchen, but she wasn't there. I checked the backyard, but she wasn't there either. Panic started to set in. I wondered if I was dreaming. My mind was racing. Where could she be? I even checked under the bed. I couldn't make a call because my phone was missing. I checked the closet to see if anything was gone, but everything was in its place. I even stepped outside to look around, considering involving the neighbors, but it was still too early in the morning. I stood vigil at the entrance of our apartment until 6 a.m. I was just about to knock on my neighbor's door when my wife pulled up in an Uber. My neighbor emerged, and I quickly apologized to him. I rushed over to my wife, questioning her about where she'd been and expressing my worry after waiting anxiously for hours. She explained that she had left her phone at the Airbnb and had used mine to order an Uber. She claimed she didn't want to disturb me because I was sound asleep, so she decided to go alone. I questioned her about why it took so long, given that the place was only a 15-minute ride away. Her initial lie was that she had gotten tired and fell asleep there. When she saw I wasn't buying it, she switched her story, saying one of the guys hid her phone and told her she had to stay until morning to get it back. When I threatened to go there and confront him, she changed her story again, saying she chose to stay because she was tired and no one forced her to stay. I confronted her, stating that I knew she wasn't telling the truth and demanded she spill the beans, or else I'd head back to the Airbnb and get the truth from them myself the next day. She confessed that she had kissed him multiple times that night, and he might have touched her inappropriately, but she couldn't recall clearly. At this point, I knew something had transpired and she was just going to keep feeding me bits and pieces of the truth, never the full story. I resolved the next day to uncover the whole truth, even if it meant going back to the Airbnb to confront them, assuming they hadn't already left. She tried to dissuade me, but I hopped into an Uber and headed back to the Airbnb to uncover what really happened. Upon reaching, I picked up a sturdy tree branch from the sidewalk, just in case I needed to defend myself. Then I knocked on the door. One of the guys, not the one who had kissed her, answered the door. He tried to slam the door shut as soon as he saw me, but I was quick. I pushed back, forcing the door open and brandishing the stick. I demanded the truth. Even though my wife hadn't confessed to sleeping with them, I had my suspicions. I asked why his friend had taken advantage of my wife. He got defensive, claiming that my wife had forgotten her phone and had told them that I was okay with her coming back alone to retrieve it. From his confession, it was clear that my wife hadn't just slept with the guy she'd kissed, but she had been with both men simultaneously. He insisted that it was consensual. He even showed me pictures they'd taken while my wife was there. In all the photos, she was smiling and seemed happy. I returned home seething with anger and confronted her. She confessed to everything. So the real story was that she had supposedly left her phone behind and used it as an excuse to go back and continue what she had begun earlier in the night. When she returned to the Airbnb, she didn't want to leave after retrieving her phone. Instead, she continued the party, started making out with the same guy again, and then the other guy joined in. They took her to the bedroom and took turns with her. The third guy and the girl were in a relationship, so they didn't participate in any of the debauchery. She apologized, blaming the alcohol again. I reminded her that she couldn't use that excuse twice. I was in a difficult position financially, having traveled this far primarily for her career. I was utterly shocked. We have what I describe as a happy and healthy relationship. We're each other's rock, supporting one another through thick and thin, usually with a smile. She assured me that it had nothing to do with her love for me or a desire to end our relationship. She explained that her depression was so overwhelming that she wanted a brief escape, a chance to revisit her younger, single, carefree days. She's filled with regret and is distraught, willing to do anything to prove that she can mend our relationship. Logically, I understand this and I believe her when she says she still loves me, but I can't wrap my head around how someone who claims to love you so deeply can so thoughtlessly throw it all away. She pleaded with me to stay, but as you can guess, I took the first flight back to the States, jobless since I'd taken a year-long sabbatical. We only have one car, which is in her name, and I don't have an apartment or place to stay here in the States, so I'm currently crashing on an inflatable mattress at my mom's place. I feel utterly devalued and betrayed. I gave up so much to support her in this overseas adventure, and the worst part is I don't feel ready to confide in my family about what really happened. Oddly enough, I feel more comfortable sharing with strangers online. We had a phone conversation the other day because I told her I was planning to file for divorce and inform my family. She begged me not to, knowing how stern my family can be and that they'd never forgive her if they found out. I'm not sure if I'm seeking advice or guidance. I think I just need to be heard. I feel like I can't fully disclose what happened to many people in my life right now. I want to start individual therapy as soon as possible because I feel like I've lost a significant part of myself. I'm ready to let go of my old life, the life I thought I shared with the woman I loved. It feels like a mourning, not just our past, but our future too. After I told her I was filing for divorce, she flew back home. She tried to persuade me that she would attend therapy and address a host of personal issues, including her alcohol abuse. She fully acknowledges her mistakes and takes responsibility for her actions. We don't have kids, but we do own a house together. We spent our 20s studying, traveling, and working in various parts of our home country before settling down. Starting a family was definitely on our radar, but we were in no rush. We had other things on our plate, like solidifying our careers and saving up for our dream home. Everyone has their own pace and priorities in life, and for some, marriage, a house, and kids might be at the top of the list. For us, it was a bit different. What really gets to me is that, after the initial kiss, she consciously decided to go back and make things worse by sleeping with not just one but two guys. That's the part that's really tearing me apart. Even if she was drunk, she made a deliberate decision to return. There's no undoing this, no amount of therapy can mend this. The scene keeps replaying in my mind and it's messing me up. As for STD testing, I haven't been intimate with her in any way since that night. Just the revelation of the initial kiss was enough to turn me off completely. I'm heading to get tested for STDs today. I've toyed with the idea of asking her if she's cheated before because it seems likely that her first affair would involve 2 men at once. But really, what's the point? We're heading for divorce anyway. I've read many stories about infidelity, and I can see why some people choose to stay and work things out. It's not as simple as she cheated. Dump her immediately. Each situation is unique and should be considered on its own merits. But for me, I know I can't trust her again, and the mental image of her with 2 men is something I can't erase. Even though I wasn't physically present when it happened, the pictures I saw of her with the 2 men are etched in my memory. I'm going to need some time alone to reevaluate my entire existence because it's going to be tough to imagine a life without her given our long history together. She's tried to arrange a meetup, but I'm determined to end things. What's been your experience with sharing the details of the infidelity with friends and family? I feel sick to my stomach having to lie about what really happened, but at the same time, I feel like sharing the truth with everyone close to me would bring shame not just on her, but on me as well. It's frustrating having to tell a diluted version of why we're taking a break and why we cut our big overseas adventure short. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate all your insights. I've started therapy and have managed to share all the details of what happened with a friend who's emotionally savvy, which was such a relief. But every day is still a struggle. Nothing seems to take my mind off things, and sleep has become a stranger to me. I end up collapsing from pure fatigue rather than actually drifting off to sleep. Being back in my hometown, living at my mom's place, it's like being a kid again. I know I need time to work through all of this, but these initial stages are just incredibly tough. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Dad gave the business to my brother who just returned from his dream job when Dad had a heart attack. When it failed, he begged me to come back but said a woman can't carry on his legacy. My dad is the worst loser in the history of parents. Ever since I was a kid, my dad had this grand vision of me and my older brother, Alex, stepping into his shoes and taking over his business one day. To him, his work wasn't just a job or a source of income. It was a legacy, something to be protected and passed down through the generations like a family heirloom. It was a source of pride, an extension of his identity, and he made sure we understood that from a young age. Despite being the youngest, I felt an intense desire to follow in his footsteps, partly because I admired him and partly because he made it seem like this was the path we were destined to walk. Summers in our household weren't filled with lazy days at the pool or trips to amusement parks like they were for my friends. Instead, they were spent immersed in the world of my dad's business. Whether it was interning, running errands, or handling small tasks, he found ways to involve us. Sometimes we'd even end up doing mundane jobs like sorting files, cleaning up inventory, or shadowing his meetings. He was determined to teach us everything he could. He believed in hands-on learning and that these experiences would prepare us for the future, instilling values like discipline and work ethic along the way. When my brother finally graduated from college, it felt like a monumental milestone for our family. We had all been eagerly anticipating his return to our hometown, where the next logical step, at least according to family expectations, would be for him to join my dad's business. It wasn't just a career path for him. It was practically an inheritance, a legacy that my dad had spent decades building and nurturing. Naturally, we assumed my brother would happily step into those shoes without question. But it turned out my brother had decided he didn't want to take over the family business after all. Instead, he announced that he had accepted a job in a city far away from us, working at some IT company. He would be moving there with his girlfriend, who also had found a job there. This news hit my parents hard. I remember the sheer disbelief on their faces, as if someone had just told them the sun wasn't going to rise the next day. My dad especially was beyond furious. He took my brother's decision as a personal affront, as if it were a betrayal of the highest order. Over the next few days, he ranted incessantly. "He's not my son anymore," Dad shouted more than once to Mom while pacing around the room with clenched fists. To him, my brother's choice wasn't just about rejecting the business. It was about rejecting him, his values, and everything he had worked for. Mom, on the other hand, refused to believe my brother could make this decision all on his own and instead placed the blame squarely on his girlfriend. According to her, it had to be his crazy girlfriend and her manipulative ideas which had pulled him away from the family. She painted my brother as some sort of a helpless victim of his girlfriend's plot, saying things like, "If it weren't for that girl, he would have come back to us anyway." My parents continued to pressure and guilt my brother to change his mind. As a result, after weeks of arguing with them, he decided to cut off all contact with us. Calls went unanswered, texts unacknowledged, and any attempt to reach out was met with silence. It was devastating for my parents, who oscillated between anger, grief, and denial. With my brother gone, suddenly all the weight of the family legacy was placed squarely on my shoulders. My dad, who had been so consumed by his anger and disappointment in my brother, seemed determined to make sure I wouldn't betray him in the same way. He tightened his grip on me, dictating every aspect of my life. I became his other son, as he would always put it, the one who would inherit his business and fulfill his dreams, since my brother had failed. For context, I'm a girl. Yet, in my dad's eyes, he treated me like his son, which was very confusing at first. I didn't let his attitude bother me. I even found some pride in the fact that he believed in me in his own way. But over the years, I began to see how warped and toxic his expectations were. His idea of grooming me to be the heir to his legacy involved stripping away any trace of femininity. He discouraged, no, outright forbade me from wearing anything pink. He insisted I keep my hair short, saying it made me look more like the son he wished I could be. I was not allowed to paint my nails or put on makeup. Looking back, I realized how deeply misogynistic his thinking was. He didn't see me as an individual or as his daughter. He saw me as a vessel to carry on his ambitions. When I finally graduated with a business degree, my parents were very proud. I had worked incredibly hard during college, and my efforts paid off when I landed a fantastic job all on my own merit. I thought maybe I could convince my parents to let me work at the job I had secured for a few years before helping with their business. But my dad, being as controlling as ever, refused to let me follow the career I had worked hard for. He insisted that I'd give it all up and join his business immediately. He argued that he didn't want me to work under anyone else except him. Reluctantly, I did as he asked. I left behind my dream job and stepped into the role he had envisioned for me for years. I slaved away under his watchful eye. Working for my dad was an all-consuming commitment. My days started early with me logging hours of work, juggling client calls, and attending endless meetings. By the time I made it home at night, I was utterly drained, only to repeat the cycle the next day. The workload wasn't just physically exhausting. It was mentally and emotionally draining too. My dad was a notorious workaholic, and his expectations of me were sky-high. Anything less than perfection was unacceptable. For 6 long years, my personal life completely disappeared. I had no time for friends, no time for dating, and certainly no time for myself. My world revolved around the business and meeting my dad's demands. It wasn't just that I had no life outside of work. It was that I wasn't allowed to have one. To him, anything that distracted me from the business was a waste of time, and he would forbid me from pursuing it. Then one evening, out of the blue, my brother Alex showed up on our doorstep. We hadn't seen him in years. Despite everything that had happened to him, I couldn't help but feel a surge of happiness to have him back. He was my brother after all, and a part of me had missed him terribly. After settling down, Alex told us why he had been out of touch for so long. He started to apologize profusely to our parents, saying he had genuinely believed that leaving home to take up his IT job felt like the right decision for him at the time. But life hadn't worked out the way he'd planned. His company had downsized and he had been laid off. To make matters worse, his girlfriend, the one my mom had spent years blaming for his absence, had left him for someone else after he lost his job. With no job, no girlfriend, and nowhere else to turn, Alex had decided to come back home. Seeing his sorry state, my parents immediately forgave him. They were overjoyed to have their golden son back, conveniently brushing aside all the years of anger and disappointment. It was as if they had been waiting for this moment all along, ready to welcome him back with open arms. The moment he returned, my dad kept telling Alex how happy he was to have his son back home and couldn't wait for him to join the business. When Alex finally started working with us, it became quickly clear that he had a lot to learn. My brother had no leadership qualities or any knowledge in business. He struggled to even explain our business properly to new clients. However, Dad encouraged him to continue making mistakes and learn, and I was the one tasked with bringing my brother up to speed. At my dad's insistence, Alex shadowed me day in and day out. I became his mentor, teaching him everything my dad had drilled into me over the years, as well as the additional knowledge I had gained through my own hard-earned experience. It wasn't easy, but I did it anyway. Then, just 4 months after my brother returned, my dad had a sudden heart attack. Thankfully, we managed to get him to the hospital in time, and he survived. But the doctors firmly informed us that at his age, he needed to cut down on stress, work less, and prioritize his health more. If he doesn't do this, then he won't live long. This was a terrifying wake-up call for all of us. Mom was very shaken up about losing Dad and begged him to finally take a step back from the business and focus on himself. Eventually, my dad agreed. He called a family meeting to announce that he would officially retire and hand over the reins of the business. At that moment, I felt a bit sad at the thought of no longer working side by side with my dad, but I was also excited to finally take over the business and help it reach new heights. After all those years of relentless hard work, pouring my heart and soul into the business, I believed this was my moment. I was ready to lead, to finally make my mark and carry on the legacy that had been drilled into me for years. But then my dad dropped a bombshell that shattered everything I had envisioned. He announced that my brother Alex would be the one to take over the business, and not me. He continued to announce that I would continue working in my current position, helping my brother to run things smoothly. I was furious when I heard this. "Dad," I said, my voice shaking, "I've worked with you for years. I know the ins and outs of this business. I know all the clients. I've built relationships with the workers, and I have plans to expand the company. Alex has barely been here for 4 months. How can you possibly think he's ready to take your role? He can barely even talk to people, let alone order anyone around." But my dad dismissed my protests, saying that this is where I should step in and help out my brother in any way that I could. He continued to explain, "Alex is the man of the family. This business is now his responsibility. So don't worry, he is going to step up and take care of it." Those words felt like a slap in my face. It didn't matter that I was the one who had kept the business running alongside him. It didn't matter that I was the one who had secured so many clients over the years. All my sacrifices, all the years I'd spent proving myself, were suddenly irrelevant because of my gender. I was devastated. And to make matters worse, Alex didn't even pretend to be conflicted about it. He accepted my dad's decision without hesitation, wearing a smug smile that made my blood boil. When I confronted him later, hoping for some semblance of understanding, he brushed me off. "You're the youngest," he said with a casual shrug. "Stop arguing with Dad. This was always going to be my responsibility." The sheer arrogance in his tone left me reeling. It wasn't just that my brother was taking over the business. It was that he seemed to revel in my disappointment. Here was someone who had abandoned the family and the business for years, who had only returned because he had no other options, and now he was being handed everything I had worked so hard for on a silver platter. It felt like my entire world had been turned upside down. Everything I had sacrificed, every dream I had nurtured, was taken from me in an instant, all because of a belief that I, as a woman, couldn't possibly shoulder the same responsibilities as a man. After that, I completely spiraled. For days, I couldn't stop crying. The betrayal, the injustice of it all, weighed on me like a crushing burden. I had spent years pouring every ounce of myself into the business, sacrificing my time, my relationships, and my own dreams, only to be told that none of it mattered. I was just a woman, and in their eyes, that meant I wasn't good enough. I was so pissed that I stopped going to work altogether. I couldn't bear to face my brother or my dad, pretending everything was fine when inside I felt like I was falling apart. I started drinking, not because I enjoyed it, but because it was the only way to numb the pain and feel something other than the relentless ache of betrayal. I'd sit alone in my apartment, staring at the walls, wondering how things could have gone so wrong. To make matters worse, my parents didn't see my reaction as valid. They dismissed my pain as an overreaction, treating it as if I were being immature and unreasonable. "It's the right decision," they kept telling me. My dad even had the nerve to tell me that if I took over his business, clients might not feel comfortable with a woman running such a large and prestigious company. Ultimately, I reached a breaking point. I realized that I couldn't stay in that environment any longer, constantly fighting for approval that would never come. If they thought my brother was the perfect candidate, then fine, they could have him. I was done trying to earn my dad's respect or live up to my parents' impossible standards. I made the decision to not only leave the business but also that town for good. When I handed in my resignation, my dad reacted exactly as I expected. He yelled at me, his face red with anger, accusing me of abandoning the family at a critical time in the business. He demanded to know how I could possibly walk away when my brother needed my help to transition into the role. My mom's reaction was equally harsh, if not worse. She threatened me, saying that if I left, she and Dad would never consider me as their daughter again. Her words cut deep, but by that point, I was so exhausted, so utterly drained, that even her threats couldn't stop me. I had spent too many years bending over backward to meet their expectations, and I finally realized it was time to live for myself. With all the money I had earned and saved over the years, I packed up my things and moved far away. I left behind the business, my parents, and the suffocating rules they had imposed on my life. It's been almost a year now since I left my parents' business, and I can confidently say it's been the best decision I've ever made for myself. For the first time in what feels like forever, I wake up each day without the crushing weight of expectations, the fear of being criticized for every little mistake, or the suffocating need to constantly prove myself. There's no one hovering over me, lecturing me, or forcing me to be someone I'm not. I've let my hair grow out and wear whatever I want without my dad's incessant comments about looking too girly. I've also started therapy. Slowly but surely, I'm working on healing the wounds left by years of emotional neglect and control. I've made friends, real friends, who support me and accept me for who I am. On top of that, I'm in a loving and fulfilling relationship with my boyfriend, John. He's kind and understanding, and he's everything I could have hoped for. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm truly living. So when my dad called yesterday, I didn't even think about answering. Since the day I walked out, my parents have kept their word. They haven't contacted me. My brother occasionally sends me texts filled with guilt-tripping remarks about how difficult it is for him to handle the business alone, or how I've made my parents sad after abandoning them. But beyond that, there's been complete silence from their end. So when my dad's number popped up on my phone screen, I simply let it ring and ignored him. This morning, I was jolted awake by the persistent ringing of my doorbell. Still groggy, I stumbled to the door, wondering who on earth could be visiting so early. When I opened it, I was stunned to find my dad standing there. Although it had only been a year since I last saw him, he looked different, older. His face seemed to sag with wrinkles I hadn't noticed before, and his skin hung loose, a stark reminder of time passing. I realized then that I had become so used to seeing him every day that I never noticed how much he had aged. For the first time, he didn't look intimidating to me, just a tired older man. He wasted no time. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice firm. "I am here because you didn't pick up my calls yesterday, and this is urgent." Typical of him, always straight to the point, no pleasantries, no preamble. I hesitated, but eventually stepped aside, allowing him in. We sat down, and I waited, half expecting some grand apology or even just a simple, "How have you been?" But my hopes were quickly dashed. Dad dove straight into why he was there. He told me that he wanted me to come back home with him and join back the business. He continued to say how I had rebelled enough, and he had just let me. But now it was time for me to be responsible and help out the family business. I glared at him in disbelief. After everything that had happened, After the way they had treated me, he had the audacity to show up at my doorstep asking me to go back with him? I took a deep breath, steadying myself before responding. No, I said firmly, meeting his gaze. I'm not coming back. This is not me rebelling against you. This is my life now, and I like it. I don't care what happens to the family business. My dad blinked, caught off guard by my dismissive tone. I had never spoken to him this way before, but that was back when I was still an obedient, foolish child who wanted to please him. Since I had left home and found my own footing, I no longer cared about his opinion of me. My dad's tone shifted as he launched into a tirade about my brother Alex. He admitted outright that my brother was incapable of running the business. He talked about how the company was nosediving because Alex lacked the people skills to build relationships with clients. His voice rose as he went on, blaming Alex for being too much like our mom, gentle, introverted, and utterly lacking in the business-savvy attitude my dad claimed he and I possessed. I raised my eyebrows at this revelation, feeling a mixture of vindication and anger bubbling up inside me. If that's the case, I said evenly, trying to keep my voice steady, then why didn't you give me the business instead of him last year? You know I had worked harder, I had proven myself, and I had been the one who actually knew how to handle everything. My dad's response was infuriatingly predictable. I could never do that, he said firmly, his tone dismissive, like the answer should have been obvious to me all along. Why not? I pressed, though deep down I already knew what he was going to say. His answer came as a shrug, accompanied by a nonchalant remark that pierced through me like a dagger. Because you're a girl. What I have built means something, so I can't just leave it up to you. The words hung in the air, sharp and suffocating. So just because I'm a woman, you think I'm not allowed to run your business, yet you have come here to ask for help? My voice trembled with a mix of rage and disbelief. My dad rolled his eyes as if I were the one being unreasonable. He launched into a speech about how he had built the business from the ground up, pouring his blood, sweat, and tears into it, and how he had always dreamed of passing it down to a son. But instead, he spat bitterly. Your mother gave me a nerdy, incapable son and a daughter. I stared at him in shock, struggling to process what he had just said. He continued, oblivious to the damage his words were causing. I never wanted a daughter, he admitted bluntly, his eyes fixed on mine. But watching you over the years changed my mind. You're more like me than Alex ever was. I'm proud of you for that. But, he trailed off, shaking his head. Even with everything you've done, I could never die knowing that I let my business be run by a woman. As if this wasn't enough, my dad even shifted the blame entirely onto my mom, muttering bitterly about how he wished she had given birth to 2 sons instead of me. He looked so disappointed that it broke my heart to see my own father demeaning me this way, as if I were a mistake, as if my very existence were something to regret. He sat there in my living room, spewing the same old misogynistic garbage I had always heard, and then had the nerve to try and smooth it over with money. I can't give you the business, he said matter-of-factly, but I'd be willing to offer you a very high salary to make up for everything. That's the best I can do. The audacity of this man, my father, to show up uninvited at my doorstep asking for my help after everything he'd said and done, while still clinging to his archaic ideas about my gender and blaming my mother for his perceived misfortune. Couldn't believe it. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, and met his gaze. You have repeatedly hurt me by demeaning me and my gender, I said slowly, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. I'm not your backup plan. I'm not going to fix the mess you created when you handed the business to Alex. You made that choice all on your own. If you regret it now, I don't care. You have to live with it. I don't know why you came to see me after all this time, but I am done arguing with you. I want you to get out of my house. He looked at me in disbelief. I said get out. I shouted again, my hand gesturing toward the open door. Before I lose my temper even more. However, he doubled down, his voice rising in indignation. You're disrespecting me, he spat. I'm your father, and as your parent, I have every right to ask this of you. You owe it to us. I don't owe you anything, I said firmly, my voice unwavering. I already gave 6 years of my life to that pathetic business, and it got me nowhere. Now I am finally free. I have a job now, a real job that makes me happy. I'm done with your manipulation, your control, and your toxic views on women. Also, you know what, Dad? Please don't ever say I am just like you when you are just a selfish, bitter loser who cares more about his pride than his own children. I never want to be anything like you. Finally, I pointed to the door again. Now get out of my house, I said coldly. I shut the door on his face as he continued to yell at me from outside. It was the first time I had ever stood up to my dad, and my hands were trembling. I do feel a bit guilty, though, for turning down my dad's offer to return to his business and for yelling at him. Date 1. First of all, for everyone asking how my parents know my address, of course they know where I live. While I moved away after my dad didn't give me the business, I didn't just completely cut them off. However, they had never disturbed me before now. Coming on to the update after my dad left, my mom called me and started yelling at me for slamming the door in his face. She called me a disrespectful, spoiled brat and accused me of giving my dad the cold shoulder just because he passed his business on to my brother. My brother also sent me a few nasty messages telling me I should get over myself and come back home before it's too late for the business. He thinks I'm stressing Dad out unnecessarily by acting this way. None of them really understand me. Update 2. Thank you to everyone for your advice. It truly means a lot to me, and I'm grateful to anyone who has taken the time to comment on my post. Now for the update. I took everyone's advice and burst my mother's bubble by sending her a clip of what exactly my dad had told me the day he came to visit. I have cameras on my front door, back door, and in my living room for my own protection, so everything my dad said to me was recorded. I created a group chat with my mom, my brother, and my dad, and I sent those clips there. I explained how this time my dad had not only repeatedly disrespected me just because I am a woman but had also blamed Mom for giving birth to me. I revealed how he wished he had 2 sons instead of 1. I also pointed out how he didn't even respect my brother's work simply because my brother was more like my mom and how much he hated him. I wanted Mom and my brother, who supported my dad so blindly, to see the truth about him. I then left the group and blocked all of them. I felt a bit satisfied knowing that this was going to start a huge fight between them. Now my mom and brother could see exactly what my dad thought of them, and there was nothing they could do to blame me for it. Update 3. It's been a month since my last update. After I sent those clips to my family, my mom left my dad a few days ago. She sent me an email apologizing for everything. She explained that after watching the videos I had sent them and hearing how my dad spoke to me had opened her eyes. She admitted that she had always tried to justify my dad's behavior, but after seeing the way he talked about me, her, and my brother, she felt repulsed by him. Apparently, ever since then, they had been fighting a lot, and when Dad kept refusing to apologize to anyone, my mom decided to leave him for good. In the email, my mom wrote that my brother had cried after watching the video, especially hearing how Dad had basically emasculated him. My brother is also leaving the business and has given Dad a month to find a replacement for him. In the end, my mom pleaded with me to unblock her on my phone so we could talk further. However, even after reading the email from Mom, I have absolutely no desire to reach out to her. She and my brother can do whatever they want. I am done with them for now. I'm just going to focus on my own life here, and if either my mom or my dad come to visit me, I'll move to a different location if I have to, just to get away from my family. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Jobless sister moved in with us, but she had an affair with my husband and got pregnant. Now she demanded that I leave my own house because she thought my husband was rich. I 34F let my sister Julie 28F move in with me a couple of months ago since she was in a really bad condition financially. Julie and I are not particularly close, but she had lost her job due to her company closing down. Within 2 weeks of that, she felt seriously sick due to the West Nile virus. After talking to my parents, I decided to have her move in with me for a couple of weeks so we could keep an eye on her, monitor her progress, and make sure that she was able to save up on rent since evidently she wouldn't be able to go back to work for a few weeks. She was probably at her worst at this time, and I was the one who had helped her out since our parents don't live around here, and she doesn't exactly have a lot of friends who were in a position to help. I didn't even look at it as a favor. I thought that this was just the right thing to do, especially since I could afford it. But she repaid me by having an affair with my husband. And on top of that, she actually had the audacity to tell me that I was the one who needed to leave the house so they could play happy family together because she was pregnant now. This happened a couple of days ago. Julie asked both me and my husband to sit in the living room so she could speak to us about something very important. I thought that she was finally moving out because she had recovered quite well in the past couple of weeks, and I thought she was going to tell us that she was finally rejoining work and was going to be out of our hair. Instead, she told me that she and my husband had been having an affair for the past couple of weeks, and right now she's pregnant. When I looked at my husband, I saw that he was just as shocked as I was. So clearly, this was not something she had discussed with him before telling me about it, which explains a lot of things. Anyway, after she told me that she was pregnant with my husband's baby, she told me that she could understand that this was probably a shock for me and she was really sorry that this even happened, but at the end of the day, what's done was done, and now she would really appreciate it if I vacated the house because she would find it really weird to be around me the whole day in her current condition. I was furious, but I didn't let it show. I just quietly told her that I was not going to vacate the house because this is my property, and if anybody had to leave, it would be her and my husband. They could play happy family wherever they wanted because I was going to be filing for a divorce and I didn't even want to see them anymore. I spoke to her as calmly as possible, kept my anger under control, and tried to deal with the situation in a dignified manner because they had already caught me off guard. So I was not going to let them have the satisfaction of watching me freak out at them. Anyway, after I told her that this was my property and I would not be leaving, she told me that I would have to, and apparently she thought that I was kidding. But then my husband told her that I was indeed not joking and told her that he was a stay-at-home husband, always had been, and he had apparently lied to her about everything that he had told her in the beginning. For context, my husband and I have been together for the past 8 years. We've been married for the past 5 years, and a couple of months after our marriage, I decided to take the leap and started my own business. With the grace of God, I've been doing very well for myself, and so my husband and I decided that he could stay back home and he could work on his writing career. For the past 4 years, he's been staying at home working on his big novel and taking care of the household chores. We don't have any kids, so he doesn't have a lot to do, but all the property and everything, it belongs to me because technically I purchased it, and both of us thought that it was only fair for me to own everything. I bet he's regretting it now, though, because after he told Julie that he didn't actually own anything and he had been lying about everything, she started freaking out at him and claimed that she had been conned. She started yelling at my husband, calling him a scammer and liar, and entertaining as it was to watch her lose her mind at him, I wasn't interested in any of that at that point in time. I just wanted both of them out of my house, so I had to intervene, get them to stop yelling at each other, and tell them to get the heck out of my house that very instant. I was not even willing to give them any time. I just wanted them out of my sight. My husband is relatively smart. He knew that there was no way he was going to get out of this one since there is nothing more important to me than my self-respect and dignity, and I was never going to take back a cheater. So he quietly went into the bedroom and started packing. But Julie decided to start begging on her knees, telling me that she was going to do anything it took to fix whatever had happened, but she just needed a place to stay, and since we were family, I couldn't just kick out a pregnant woman. Her bringing up the fact that we were family, that's what really ticked me off. So I grabbed her by the arm, got her to stand up, and walked her to the door, then pushed her out physically. I was very rough with her, but I didn't care. I was furious at the fact that she had had the audacity to say that we were family and I couldn't kick her out. It really got to me. Once she was outside, she started begging me not to do this, but I slammed the door shut. Then I went to the guest room, started stuffing all her things in her bags, and in a couple of minutes, I threw those bags outside with her and told her to get lost or else I would call the cops on her. She kept crying, but I just shut the door and went back inside. A few minutes later, my husband walked out with his bags, telling me that he was really sorry about this, but I pretended not to hear him. Julie kept crying and begging on the porch for about an hour after he left, but I just put my headphones on and blocked her out. After a certain point of time, I couldn't hear her crying on the porch any longer and I realized that she was finally gone. That very night, I spoke to my lawyer, told him everything that happened, and said that I wanted to file for divorce. I thought that I would tell my friends and family later, but the very next day, I received a call from my parents telling me that what I had done was really unreasonable and that my behavior was heartless. I found that very strange because so far, My parents have always treated me and Julie equally. It's not like she's the golden child or whatever, but the fact that they were actually defending her didn't sit right with me. They told me that it was heartless of me to kick her out when she was pregnant, especially when I knew for a fact that she was in between jobs right now and was recovering from a serious illness, so it would take her time to get back on her feet. On top of that, she didn't have anybody here who could take care of her as well as I could. All her friends were in the same boat financially and had their own work and family to worry about rather than taking care of her. So as her sister, the least I could do was forgive her for her stupidity and be there for her. Instead, I kicked her out and they thought that I was being really insensitive, especially considering the fact that she was pregnant. To top it all off, it was my husband who had scammed her, and they said it as if it was my fault somehow. Apparently, my husband had been telling her that he owned everything and that he handled the financial situation at home because he was a really successful ghostwriter for novels and even film scripts, but since he didn't want the fame that came along with this, he kept himself anonymous, and my idiot sister actually believed all that. She started to think that maybe he was a hot shot, which is why she ended up seducing him. And since he was on a power trip, my husband never said anything about the truth either. Then when she got pregnant, Julie figured that it was finally time to let me know that she had been having an affair with my husband, so the two of them could kick me out. Unfortunately, that plan backfired, especially since she hadn't even discussed anything with my husband before confronting me with the truth, and essentially she screwed everything up for herself and my husband. Anyway, I really don't understand how any of this is my fault. She brought this on to herself, and my parents' decision to pretend like she was the victim in the situation that she herself had created was absolutely mind-boggling. So I fought for myself. I defended my decision to throw her out because she was the one who decided to have an affair with my husband, and regardless of whether he played a part in it or not, it was clear that she played an equal part. Both of them had teamed up and betrayed me together, so it didn't make sense for me to kick my husband out and then let her stay as if nothing had happened. And it didn't make a difference to me whether she was pregnant or not, whether she could work right now or not, because I had taken all that into consideration before and let her stay with me for months. But she had thanked me by having an affair with my husband while staying under my roof. Besides, it wasn't even as though she was heavily pregnant and couldn't deal with anything. She was probably just a few weeks along, and I'm sure she could handle it. And even if she had been 9 months along, I still would have kicked her out because what she did was disgusting. After all, she was ready to kick me out when she thought that our house belonged to my husband, so why would I worry about her? But my parents just kept talking about that one point over and over again, especially highlighting how rough I had been with her, until I just got tired of them and I hung up. It was clear that they were not going to move on from that, and since we haven't spoken to each other, but now I'm beginning to think that maybe I didn't do the right thing. Am I the a-hole for kicking my pregnant sister out of the house because the baby belongs to my husband? Update 1. Hey, thank you so much everyone for all the support and the comments. I really needed that since I had seriously started to doubt myself, but I really don't need to. I blocked my parents yesterday. I really don't need that sort of negative energy in my life, especially right now since I'm already dealing with a lot of stuff. I can't stop going to work to recover from what's been going on in my personal life. I'm the boss. I'm just going to have to put on a strong front and deal with it. So at work, it's been business as usual, but as soon as I come back home, I just crash because emotionally I'm just devastated. I didn't let any of the cracks show for the past couple of days, but now it's really starting to hurt. My lawyer and I filed for divorce a couple of days ago, and soon enough I think my husband will be served. I know he's not going to contest the divorce. He knows me well enough to know that if he does, I'm going to make sure that he pays for it. But at the end of the day, it still hurts. Winning the divorce is not going to make the situation better for me automatically. I just can't imagine why after 8 years of being together he had to have that affair with Julie. I really believed that we were in love. I genuinely thought that we were going to be together forever and grow old together. But now I'm doubting everything that we have had in the past couple of years. This is not even the first person that he cheated on me with. Maybe this is just the first time that he got caught, and even the thought of that makes my heart hurt. But there's not much that I can do about it apart from just accept it and try to move on. He is the only person who hasn't tried to contact me after he got kicked out. My parents have, and so has Julie. But that's different because I know that they only want me to take her back in so she can continue staying here for free. It's really shocking that even after she has done so much damage, she still has the audacity to expect me to help her out, and it's actually even more insane that my parents are siding with her right now. In my post, I spoke about how my parents had never had a favorite child. They had always treated me and Julie equally, but right now, I honestly don't know what to think about this. I don't have any expectations from Julie herself. I had already said that we were never very close, and the only reason I had helped her out was because I knew that financially it was not going to be a big deal for me, and we already had a spare room at home. So why not? And that's what my parents had wanted as well, so I didn't see a problem with helping her out since that's what family does. But I never really expected anything great in return from Julie, at least. However, with my parents, it's a different story. Given how they've always been reasonable and fair, I expected them to be upset with Julie, and I'm not saying they aren't. From the conversation that we had earlier, it was clear that they were not happy about how Julie had chosen to go about the situation. But they kept insisting that the damage had already been done, and now the only thing that we could do was just accept whatever had happened and try to move on with it. But accept how? How am I supposed to accept the fact that my sister, who I supported at my worst, decided to have an affair with my husband, who has been with me for almost a decade, and on top of that actually expected me to leave my own house? It's bizarre to even say out loud, and I'm somehow supposed to accept it and help her out even now? I honestly don't know what's gotten into my parents, but they have seriously disappointed me with their behavior. I think I've lost all respect that I had for them, and I don't think that I can ever regain it because the situation right now, it's really bad. Emotionally, I'm just done, and mentally, I'm only focused on my work, but everything in my personal life has pretty much fallen apart. I haven't even spoken to my friends about it, but I know at some point I'm going to have to let people know that this is happening. After all, my husband and I have a lot of common friends together, and I would rather that they found out about the situation from me than him because I don't know what he would tell them at this point. I don't know what to expect from anyone anymore. Anyway, now I'm only trying to focus on a couple of things for a while. First, of course, my work shouldn't suffer because of this, and I'm going to make sure of it. Secondly, I also have to worry about the divorce proceedings because even though I'm 90% sure that he's not going to contest terms since I've decided to be pretty fair and reasonable, there is still a small chance and uncertainty about what he might do because right now it's anybody's guess. So I'm keeping all the documentation prepared and stuff just in case. But other than that, I'm trying to keep my head as blank as possible because I really don't want to overexert myself and end up spiraling. That's the last thing that I need right now. But venting about my feelings here has been really helpful, and I really appreciate the fact that so many of you have reached out to me, commented on my post, and been so supportive. It means the world to me, it really does. Update 2. Hey, so just as I had expected, after he was served, my husband decided to hit me up and tell me that he was not going to be contesting the divorce and he found the terms of the divorce to be very fair. He sent me a text saying all this, and then in the next one, he told me that in the past couple of days, he had been thinking of ways to apologize to me, but he just couldn't come up with anything because everything that he thought he could say just seemed really flimsy and insincere, and so he just decided to get it out of the way by telling me that he was really sorry by text. He told me that he had lied to Julie just to impress her because he had been feeling very weird lately about the fact that he didn't own and had to rely on his wife for his finances. We don't even have a kid, so he couldn't even have the dignity of being a stay-at-home dad. He just felt useless, and since his novel was not coming along that well either, he felt like he had wasted 4 years of his life on something that was going to take him nowhere, and he had been feeling particularly depressed about it. But he couldn't even acknowledge it to himself, let alone talk to me about it, so he was feeling really bad about himself. And then when Julie came along, before he could even think about the depravity of what he was doing, he was lying to her about everything, trying to impress her, and soon enough they were sleeping together. He thought that it was just going to be a fling, and he felt really guilty about it, but he just couldn't control himself. He needed a way to distract himself from everything that was going on, and that was his way. But then she got pregnant, and we had that horrible conversation 2 weeks ago, after which everything pretty much went to absolute crap. And he told me that he really regrets everything that he did. He screwed everything up for us, but he promised me that this was the first and last time that he had ever cheated on me. This had never happened before, and he really needed me to trust him on that. And maybe sometime in the future, if I could, then he wanted me to forgive him for everything that he had done wrong. That was the message, and after I was done reading, I ended up crying because it was just another reminder of everything that I had lost. I thought that I had this man who I loved and who loved me, but within a span of one day, I lost all of that, and trust me, it's not easy to deal with it. I know that every person who has ever gone through a divorce or been cheated on, they'll probably know exactly what I'm talking about. I can say a bunch of horrible stuff about him and make myself hate him for now, but at the end of the day, it still hurts. I hated myself for crying over that text, but at least after I was done crying, I got the strength to block him without replying because, to be honest, even though I was very upset about everything, he did not deserve a reply, and I was not going to forgive him, especially not right now when everything is just so fresh. After a while, I actually started feeling a bit annoyed with everything that he had said because all he had to do was just talk to me. I, for one, had never ever made him feel bad that he was choosing to stay at home and work on his novel. I'm not a very creative person myself. I've never been one for writing and stuff, apart from right now since I really have to get these things off my chest. But I respected his creative side and I didn't see anything wrong with him staying at home. I could understand that his fragile male ego couldn't handle it. Maybe other people had made comments and stuff, and maybe he just became bitter. But the least he could have done after 8 years of being with me was at least let me know what he was going through, and then maybe we could have worked it out together. But he chose not to. He chose to let himself suffocate without letting me know anything, and then he chose to distract himself by entertaining Julie and her advances. The more that I think about it, the more disgusting and pathetic I find it. The fact that he lied to her about so many things just to make himself seem bigger and better. I loved him the way he was, but that was not enough for him. He had to go out of his way to make himself seem more impressive with a bunch of lies and then cheat on me with my sister. This is just never going to make any sense to me. At least with Julie, I could understand her motive. She wanted to live my life and get ready without putting in any work, and she thought that she could do that by getting pregnant and moving in with my husband, the supposedly rich guy. But with him, I just don't know why he did it and ended up ruining everything that he had. And I think that that's punishment enough. Who he is bad enough. I don't have to punish him more, so I can just choose to ignore his existence now. In a few months, I'll be done with the divorce, and then I'll just never have to see him or think of him again. Update 3. Hey! So it's been a couple of days since my last update and I was having a quiet few days. But then today in the morning, my parents showed up at my house. I found it strange because in the past few years after they moved back to my dad's hometown to run the family business with my uncle, they would hardly ever visit, and it was mostly Julie and I who would have to go see them. So the fact that they had taken a flight and came to visit me was a big deal in itself. But I knew that they were only here to talk about Julie, and that's why when I opened the door, I told them that if they were here to talk about her, then I really didn't want to entertain them. After all, there's only one Sunday every week, and I really didn't want to waste mine by going over the same things again. I had said whatever I had to, and so had they, and right now we had nothing more to discuss with regard to that situation. And I also made it very clear to them that I would only let them in if they apologized to me for everything first, because I believed that the way they had behaved with me, the way they had tried to constantly guilt-trip me into believing that I had treated Julie badly when it was she who had screwed up everything, it was not right. So they could either apologize to me right now or they could leave. I made my boundaries very clear, but my parents told me that they had come specifically to talk to me about Julie, and I couldn't just weasel my way out of it by pretending that I was too busy. They told me that we had to discuss this because as a family, we couldn't treat each other like this. Once again, they were bringing up the whole family thing, and just like with Julie, I lost my temper with them as well because this is not how families treat each other, at least as far as I'm concerned. Even though I'm not very close to Julie, she was family, so I helped her out. But instead of respecting that and being grateful to me, she literally had an affair with my husband. Is that seriously how a family is supposed to treat one another? And if she can do that to me, why am I supposed to be kind to her even after that? She destroyed my marital life, and I know that my husband had an equal part in it, but so did she, and I don't have to forgive her just because she's family. She didn't think about me before doing what she did, so why exactly am I supposed to do that? At least I had valid reasons and explanations. She didn't. I totally put my parents on blast, and they kept trying to fumble and come up with arguments, but I didn't even let them speak. I just steamrolled all over their arguments, and after I was done, my mom had literally been reduced to tears, and she just kept repeating that I couldn't talk to them like that. But they were on my turf. I could speak to them however I wanted to, especially because they had decided to get on my nerves this morning even though they already knew that there was no need to discuss this. Since my personal life was already pretty bad, I didn't need them adding fuel to the fire. I had already warned them when they showed up that I was not interested in talking about this, but they had still decided to test me, so they really had no right to pretend that they were very hurt by whatever had happened. They should have been expecting exactly this sort of outburst anyway. After I was done yelling at them, my mom was sobbing so hard that my dad just told me that he never wanted to speak to me again because clearly I had lost it, and then he walked away. But I don't care. They can believe that I'm crazy. I know that I'm not, and that's enough for me. If anything, they are the ones acting crazy right now, and that is all that I need to know. Update 4. Hi, so it's been a month since my last update, and I haven't been in touch with anybody from my family, not Julie and definitely not my parents. I'm guessing that now they are funding her, so good for her, I guess. As for my soon-to-be ex-husband, I heard from a couple of people that he is living with his parents now, and after this has been finalized, he's going to be moving out of state. By now, pretty much all our friends know exactly what happened, and they have started cutting him out of their lives, most of them at least. Some of them don't want to get involved and remain neutral, but I don't really care. All I know is that my life is slowly but steadily getting back on track, and I'll do anything to protect my peace now. I'm not exactly happy, but at least I'm content, which is an improvement from last month, and slowly I know that I am going to be happy again. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Sister slept with my fiancé months before our wedding. Mom knew and kept quiet. Now she showed up pregnant and crying about internet hate when I exposed them online. 30-year-old woman here. I have a sister who's just a year older than me. We've always had such a good relationship, so finding out about this one hurt. She might as well have just stabbed me in my heart. On top of that, I've been with my fiancé since high school, and we've always been with each other through thick and thin. We were going to get married in a few months. I have no idea why on earth they did this to me. What's even worse was that our mom knew, and out of fear of getting involved, my sister apparently begged her not to say a word. She didn't tell me anything. Thankfully, my dad wasn't having it, and he spilled the beans to me. I've never been so angry in my life. Not only did I kick my fiancé out and throw out his stuff, some of it in the trash, but I decided to hurt my sister in another way. Why not do the same for my fiancé? Simple, she's my sister. We've always had a good relationship until she decided to ruin it months before my big day, which I allowed her to be a bridesmaid in. You don't do that to anyone, let alone your sister, your blood. My sister's big on gardening, so when she lost her dog, she made a garden for him. I knocked on her door. She didn't know that I knew, and of course I played nice. I moved on to what she did with my fiancé, and I slightly damaged her garden. I honestly just crushed a couple flowers. Am I sorry? No. Her excuse sent me over the edge. It just happened isn't a reason. Sleeping with my fiancé just happened like that, I guess. I told her I didn't want her speaking to me anymore, and that I also didn't want her mom to speak to me. My fiancé won't say a word since I threatened to call the police if he ever went near me again. Yay, I made my sister cry and scream at me, but I genuinely feel like I should be the one crying. She knew how important getting married was to me, and now I can't experience that. Pair that with the fact that I had to hear this from my dad, not my bum excuse of a sister or fiancé. Hell, even my own mother didn't say a word to me. It's like she lets my sister to run her. EFF Tia, EFF Logan. If they ever see this, I'd be absolutely delighted. Edit 1. Since many people keep bringing this up, I'm upset that I lost the relationship I've always put 100% into. I was excited to get married, of course, but then this news came out. It really hurt me. I didn't want to believe it at first. I almost thought my dad was pulling my leg. Later turned out to be true. I swear I have trust issues now. Edit 2. Thanks again for all the suggestions, y'all. It's helping me feel more confident in exposing them. I'm just a bundle of nerves right now because I know shit's going to hit the fan again when I do. So, I'll try my best to come with an update. I mean, it's the least you all deserve, huh? Last edit. When I say I decided to hurt her, it's because I kind of ruined something so meaningful to her. I feel like for most people, besides on here, that would be a bit far. That's just how I feel though. I understand it's not what you guys wanted, lol. Clearly worked a bit though, since she thought I was so damn psychotic for that. Like I said, I don't feel sorry about hurting her that way. Forgive my terrible mood. I definitely plan on exposing them sometime today. Comments where Op has replied. Commenter. Expose them to everyone and ruin them. Oop. I've actually debated on doing this after I got done dealing with my sister, but if anything, I can unblock her JES to show her what other people in the world think about her trashy ass, huh? Seriously though, I still can't believe she did me like this. Commenter. Expose them. They will try and spin it differently and make you look like the bad guy. Tell all his family, your extended family, and mutual friends. Tell them that you have cut all contact with them and you wish not to be around them ever again. Oop. So far, his sister was the only one who reached out to me about this. She was in hysterics asking me WTF happened. She fully supports me in this. Unsure about the rest of the family, but as of now, the only person I can even trust is my father, probably her too. Commenter. This is horrible. When did this happen? I can't believe your mother. Oop. I actually found out over the previous weekend. Under another comment, I wrote how my dad explained it to me. Supposedly, my sister decided to tell my mom. She obviously asked her to keep her lips closed about it. My mom apparently told my dad over the weekend, not right away, and then he told me. The thing is, I have no idea when the hell they even had sex. That wasn't made known to me or my parents. It seems my sister could have kept this secret for God knows how long until she finally decided to come clean to my mother. For all we know, they could have done it months ago, maybe even several times. My fiancé denied even sleeping with her more than once. But I'm finding it hard to believe him. A small part of me keeps trying to justify my mom's actions, but I can't seem to understand. She clearly didn't care. Oop on everyone knowing about the wedding being cancelled via social media. Haha. I did make a post apologizing for canceling the wedding, but I've turned off notifications because I kept getting a flood of messages asking what happened. So far, only his sister and my cousin know. I couldn't bear to even say anything else to other people at the time. I felt so sick. These comments are giving me ideas though, and they're very tempting. Update 1. August 28, 2024. Hey everyone. It seems like my other post has been deleted. Thanks again for the comments and support. I found out quite a bit. To start off, I did expose her and my ex on my story. I unblocked them both to tag them. Shout out to one of the commenters who wrote down what I should say. I saved it and wrote it but added some other words of my own. My ex actually blocked me after he saw my story. I sent my Reddit post to my sister after. At the time, she didn't see, but I got a call from my ex's mom. She was furious about everything, but she asked me how I was holding up and if I've heard the news. My heart sank a little because I honestly couldn't bear to hear any more bad news. I asked her what she was talking about. She said, "So you haven't?" I said no and asked her to tell me. My sister's pregnant. Apparently, Logan told her in an attempt to make her chill out on my sister. I didn't want to hear anymore, so I told her I needed to hang up the phone. Thankfully, she accepted, because I literally burst into tears 2 seconds later. After 5 minutes of crying, my sister responded to my story and texted with the Reddit post link. She was texting me in all caps, begging me to take it down. If I wasn't so upset, I would have laughed a little, but I just sat there watching her blow up my phone. I got even angrier when she said, "I'm coming over and I'm telling Mom that you're spreading my business online. All right, you big baby." Still never responded though. I felt frozen. 30 minutes later, she's trying to break my door down. So I opened it in a fit of rage and I started screaming all kinds of shit at her. She kept screaming at me to take it down, and I told her that's going to stay up for as long as I wanted to. She kept telling me she didn't deserve online hate, and she even tried telling me that she's always been there for me through everything, and that she would have forgiven me if it was the other way around. That's when I punched her. A small part of me felt guilty. I'm not the fighting type, and that was probably evident in my last post, haha. But she retaliated by saying, "It's not my fault Logan was tired of you." And that's when I told her that I hope she ends up like her dog, and that she deserves every bit of hate she's getting for ruining my relationship. I even apologized for not ruining her entire garden and her stupid face at first. I know I'm wrong for saying this, but the entire time she was playing the victim. She called me evil and told me to rot in hell. Kept saying I was punishing her over a mistake. I said, "You have no idea what you've put me through, and I know you would have done the same thing if you were the victim." She kept crying and insulting me because all she's ever done was support me through everything, and I had the nerve to punch her in the face and allow strangers to bash her on the internet. I told her she deserved it and I don't want her talking to me ever again, and if she comes near me, I'm calling the police. She kept saying I was being extremely unfair and that she said she was sorry in her texts, but I wasn't having it. I told her to tell Mom I'm not talking to her again either. She asked me if I was really going to cut her off like that, and I just wished her good luck with her unwanted child and told her to go home. That was the last time. She walked off my porch anyway. I had to clean up my favorite vase, but it doesn't even matter. At least they're out of my life. However, it's weird how sad I feel now. It's for my own good, but damn, I'll never experience the bond we had again. On the bright side, seems like I've dodged 2 bullets. Thanks again though, everyone. Maybe I do need therapy. Last edit to say that my dad called not too long ago asking me to take every post down because, according to my mother, my effing sister is bawling her eyes out of mean people on the internet. As if I'm taking anything down. My dad's pissed about her pregnancy, but my mom continues to defend her by saying we need to chill out on her a little bit. This is why I'm not talking to her. Thanks again though, everyone. I'm exhausted and I need to worry about other things. Update 2. August 31st, 2024. I've officially decided to go LC with my dad today. Surprisingly, he wasn't that upset about it. However, he's still on team take down the posts, and that's why I made my decision. My mom wants nothing to do with me because if I wasn't going to respect the family, there's no point in trying to get to you. Wow, it's almost like that's what I wanted. My cousin and my ex's sister have been supporting me. Apparently, my sister has had meltdown after meltdown because more people are slowly finding out about the affair, not only in person but on the internet. She actually got into it with my cousin online and, according to my cousin, my sister keeps asking her to tell me to take down the posts because she's sorry and she felt pressured into doing what she did. Last I even heard about my ex from his sister. She told me that they did speak, and although he's not ready for a child, he doesn't feel comfortable leaving my pregnant sister on her own. He also wants me to stop what I'm doing, but oh well, they're made for each other anyway. I've surprisingly been feeling a bit better thanks to my cousin and my new sister, as I like to call my ex's sister now, haha. I've actually gotten some good sleep. Still considering therapy too. A very tiny part of me feels pretty bad for exposing my sister and ex, and I'll always miss the relationship I've had with them, even despite my last encounter with my sister. But they've hurt me and it's what they deserve. If they're not taking it well, that's their problem. Thanks everyone once again. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Jealous Sil locked me in a closet at my baby shower because she couldn't handle the fact that I was giving my grandchildren before her. Hi, so I'll get right into it. I've always had a very weird equation with my sister-in-law, and recently something happened that kind of pushed me over the edge, and not just me, literally everyone in the family. I, 28F, have been married to my husband, 28M, for 3 years, and we have been together for 6. A couple of months ago, we found out that we were expecting our first child together, and we were thrilled about it. A few days ago, this week, we decided to have a baby shower and invited our families and friends to our new house for the event. My sister-in-law, Connie, 30F, and her husband were also invited to the event. Connie has been with her husband for 8 years and married for 5, and they have been trying to have a baby for a really long time but haven't been successful. Recently, they started their IVF treatments because even though neither of them had any fertility issues, they were still struggling with conceiving. Had she been a better person, I might have felt bad for her, but after what she did recently, I'm glad that she hasn't been able to conceive yet because she's crazy and honestly doesn't deserve to be a mother. Connie and I don't really get along, and I would say that it's her fault because I've always been cordial with her, but she just has a weird attitude about everything. Earlier, she used to be nice to my face, but I had heard from several of her family members that she constantly put me down behind my back and made fun of a lot of things about me. So, I slowly distanced myself from her, and then eventually we got to the point where we were only nice to each other for the sake of our family and nothing more. So, inviting each other to events was more of a formality, and we knew it. She had been invited to my pregnancy announcement party as well, and even there, all she had done was sulk. And maybe I should have taken that hint and not invited her this time, but I didn't think much of it. Anyway, a couple of days ago, I had my baby shower, and Connie and her husband also attended. They were one of the first few guests to arrive, so we had taken a few people on a house tour since it was a new home, and yes, this is quite an important detail. And anyway, after everyone had arrived and the baby shower was in full swing, I was speaking to a couple of friends when Connie came to my side and asked me if I could show her where our bedroom was because she wanted to rest for a bit since she was feeling kind of nauseated. I thought that it was quite strange that she had come to me and not her brother. But since I was busy with my friends and also because I was heavily pregnant, I told her to find my husband and ask him since I really didn't feel like getting up. But she told me that she also wanted to speak to me in person and privately, which is why she had asked me specifically since she didn't actually need to rest. She just wanted to talk to me and needed an excuse for it. That made me a little curious, so I decided to excuse myself and got up to take her to the bedroom so we could talk away from everyone else. I actually thought that she was going to apologize for her behavior in the past or something because she was being really nice, and I guess that should have made me suspicious, but anyway, I didn't think of it and started walking with her to the bedroom. And here's the deal with our house. It's pretty big, and that means that our bedroom is quite a distance from the living room. There is a really long corridor leading up to it, and on one side of the corridor we have something like a supply closet. So while we were crossing that, all of a sudden, Connie grabbed me by the arm, shoved me inside, and locked me in. The closet was a small, dark, and cramped room where we were storing a couple of unpacked boxes on the shelves, our vacuum cleaner, and a few MS. We hadn't yet installed lights in that room, and there was no ventilation apart from a tiny window that was situated really high up in the wall. Everyone in the family knows that I suffer from severe claustrophobia, so a room like that is pretty much the stuff of my nightmares. I started panicking as soon as Connie shoved me into the room, and I kept banging on the door and telling her to let me out. But I knew that there was no point because she must not have stayed outside the door for long, and there was loud music playing in the living room where everyone was sitting because we wanted the baby shower to be fun for everyone, and it was more of a party than a shower. Besides, even without the music, there were a lot of people in the living room, and I'm sure they couldn't hear me above the conversation because the supply closet was a little distance away from the living room. In spite of that, I kept banging on the door and screaming for someone to come help me until my voice gave out, and I honestly don't remember what happened after that. I guess I must have fainted because of my claustrophobia since the only thing I remember after that was waking up in the hospital. Thankfully, I was lucky enough to be found about 20 minutes after I'd left the living room since it was time to open the presents. But I wasn't even there, so people came looking for me. Apparently, after Connie had returned to the living room without me, she had told my friends that I needed to rest for a bit, and that's why I had chosen to stay in the bedroom and had sent her back to tell them. A pregnant woman choosing to take some time away from a party so she could rest wasn't all that strange. So nobody raised any questions because what Connie had done was so absurd. It hadn't even occurred to anybody that she might have been lying. And then eventually, when it was time to open the presents, people started looking for me, and my husband started panicking when he realized that I wasn't in the bedroom like Connie had said. He had the good sense to check the supply closet, and in there he found me on the floor, unconscious. It didn't even take a second to call the ambulance so he could rush me to the hospital because he thought that something serious had happened and I had fainted because of some pregnancy-related complications since I hadn't even woken up when sprinkled with cold water. Our families drove behind us, and my sister stayed back home to handle all the guests until we reached the hospital and I regained consciousness. Nobody discussed exactly why I had been in the supply closet in the evening, even though I'm the kind of person who refuses to enter that space while there is daylight because of how cramped and small it is. I remained unconscious for about 10 minutes, and when I woke up in the hospital, which is luckily just a few minutes away from our home, they ran some tests and stuff before telling my family that there was nothing they needed to be worried about. I'd just been knocked out cold because I had probably been in a very stressful situation, and my blood pressure had dropped to a dangerously low level. That bit wasn't surprising because ever since I got pregnant, I had been having a lot of trouble with my blood pressure and the way it was fluctuating constantly, and I guess the claustrophobia and the panic attack must have triggered me somehow, which is why I ended up fainting and remaining unconscious for 10 whole minutes. After I came to my senses, they took me home, and my sister made sure that all the guests were served food and told them that I was completely fine so they wouldn't worry. Once I had come back home, Nobody was in the mood to have fun anymore, so everyone went back home, and it was just me and our families who stayed so we could get to the bottom of what had happened. I felt exhausted, so even though I remembered exactly what had happened, I was in no mood to relive it, and I just wanted everyone to leave so I could go to sleep. But luckily for me, my friends who had been speaking to me before I left the room with Connie had heard the conversation between me and her, and they knew that it was Connie who had taken me out of the living room so we could go to the bedroom, and in all likelihood, she was the one responsible for this. So, before they left, they had told my husband about it. They didn't bother me that evening, but the next morning, I found out from my husband that he had confronted Connie before the family had left, and while I was resting in the bedroom, they had been arguing in the living room. Our families were there, and so was he, and Connie kept denying that she had anything to do with locking me in the supply closet. She claimed that she had gone with me to the bedroom to apologize for always being cold and a bit mean to me all the time, and apparently we had made up for the last couple of years. Then I told her that I wanted some time away from the party, so I stayed in the bedroom, and she came back. So, she really had no idea why I had ended up in the supply closet and denied having anything to do with it. And since it was just her word against my friends, they couldn't come to a conclusion that evening. But the next morning, I woke up in a much better condition, and after breakfast, my husband asked me what exactly had happened, and I told him everything. I told him I had kept banging on the door of the supply closet and begged Connie to let me out, but she probably hadn't even been there to hear me. He was furious and called the rest of the family over once again so we could deal with the situation. This time I was present as well, so she couldn't deny what she had done. I remember that morning, Connie showed up looking really sick and pale because she probably knew that she was screwed. Her husband also looked worried, but I don't think that he knew exactly what his wife had been up to. Anyway, I recounted what had happened that evening and confirmed the fact that Connie was the one who had pushed me into that closet and left me there. Everyone seemed horrified, and nobody really knew what to say because I don't think anybody wanted to believe that somebody they had known for so long was capable of doing something so horrible. Truth be told, I get that because no matter what kind of relationship I had with Connie, even I had found it very difficult to believe that she had done something so unhinged. But that was the truth. She had tried to harm me on purpose, and I didn't even feel safe around her anymore. After I was done talking, my mother-in-law, Pam, was the first one to speak up. She sounded really disappointed and resigned and said that she should have seen this coming because for the past couple of months, Connie had been absolutely livid with me. The reason for that was that she felt like I was rubbing it in her face, the fact that I was pregnant before her even though she had been married for longer than me. She had even said that she was very unhappy with the fact that I would be the first woman in the family to give Pamela a grandkid and not her. But Pam thought that these ramblings against me were just harmless and petty, so she never brought it up with us. But she had no idea that Connie would go out of her way to do something like this out of anger and jealousy. At that point, Connie started crying and said that she hadn't done this out of anger, but it was only meant to be a harmless and innocent prank. She claimed that she had no idea that this was going to go so wrong, and she had actually intended on just leaving me locked in there for a couple of minutes as a prank, and then she would let me out and apologize for not just locking me in but for her behavior towards me for the past couple of years. She said that she had completely forgotten about the fact that I was severely claustrophobic, and when she realized that I had fainted in the supply closet, she knew that people would think that she had done this on purpose, and that's why she had chosen to lie about the previous night because she was scared of the consequences. But now she did not want anyone in the family to misconstrue what she had done, and she had done it. So, she insisted that it was just a prank, and she didn't really intend to harm me. Unfortunately for her, nobody really believed her because, well, it wasn't very believable, and I was very pissed off that she had put me through so much just because she was upset that she wasn't getting pregnant as if it was my fault. I hadn't even been rubbing anyone's face like she was saying. I had only held a pregnancy announcement a couple of months back and now this baby shower. As far as I'm concerned, these are very common events pregnant people host, and they are not meant to rub the pregnancy into anyone's face. If that's how she felt, that was her own fault and insecurity showing. Also, what she had said about me being the first woman to give Pamela a grandkid was just disgusting because this wasn't a competition or a race. The bottom line was that she was upset that she hadn't had any luck in getting pregnant and I hadn't even been trying but I still got pregnant. And it sucks for her that she's having to deal with fertility issues in spite of having all normal results. But that's really not my fault or my problem, and I had had enough rest, so I was furious the next morning. And I told Connie that for the past couple of years, she has been nothing but weird with me, but I had never even done anything to her. In fact, I'd always tried to be nice to her, and she was the one who had constantly faked it with me and then gone behind my back to talk crap about me. Even then, I had stayed dignified and just distanced myself from her, but it seemed like she was just never happy and wanted to make sure that she created enough problems for me. I told her that I could understand that she was feeling jealous and insecure, but for somebody to act like this was just demented, and I did not feel safe around her anymore. I told her that she was a horrible human being for what she had done. Even though nothing had happened to me, something very easily could have happened, and I knew it was not a prank like she was trying to pass it off as. I knew that she saw me as competition, but unfortunately, I was not competing with anyone, and she had no right to drag me into this for no reason. Then I told her that I did not want her visiting or speaking to me anymore, and then I turned to everybody else and said that if they spoke to her again, then I would not speak to them. So, it was either going to be her or me. And that's when Connie started protesting, saying that I had no right to do that, especially when she had just been playing a prank. I could see that both she and her husband were actually worried, but I had said whatever I had to say, and they could go on screaming, but it didn't matter since I knew that the rest of the family was also going to agree with me eventually. Connie got way too loud, and my mother-in-law had to step in. She told Connie to stay quiet because this was just the consequence of her own actions, and she had lost the right to protest against it. And then she said something that shocked us all. She backed me up and told me that I was right. It wouldn't be possible to look at Connie the same way because what had happened was just insane, and nobody was going to believe her claim of it only being a prank. Then she went on to say that she was cutting Connie out of her life for now, and maybe in the future they would be able to make up. But right now, she didn't want anything to do with her. And that also meant that she was no longer going to be paying for the IVF treatments, so they would have to look for some other way to deal with it. My father-in-law, who is a generally quiet man and mostly lets Pamela do all the talking, also agreed with this, and I'm not even exaggerating, Connie and her husband literally erupted at that point. They started screaming at Connie's parents and said that they couldn't do this since everyone knew that they were really desperate to start a family, and they couldn't afford the IVF treatments along with everything else that was going on. So Connie's parents had been their only hope. For context, my in-laws are quite rich, but Connie's husband's parents aren't exactly on the same level, so they couldn't have approached them for help. Connie and her husband have just started a new business. It's barely been a few months, so they haven't managed to break even yet, which is probably why they were relying on Connie's parents for the money for the treatments. We didn't know about that before it was brought up by them, and it was a huge deal that they were backing out of it since Connie had been pretty desperate to have a baby. When Connie and her husband started screaming hysterically, Pam stood her ground and said that given her current state of mind and the way she was behaving, she thought it was best for her not to have a baby right now, and I couldn't agree more. Nobody had anything to say, and Connie just broke down and kind of just fell to the floor while crying, and it was pretty pathetic to see her like that, but I wasn't going to go back on my word. She continued to sob on the floor for about 5 minutes, and nobody said anything during that time. But then she got up, and I thought that she was going to speak to her mother, but she came directly towards me and actually started begging for forgiveness. And I mean, she was really begging. She was on her knees and everything and said that she was genuinely and truly sorry for what she had done. But she knew that I could make this right by speaking to Pam, and I just had to do it. Pam tried to be gentle with her and told her that her mind had been made up, and not even I could change it, but Connie was not ready to listen. She was just hysterical, and I don't think she was in her senses at the time. It was kind of awkward, so I didn't even know what to say, and I really felt bad for her. But there was nothing that I could do. After a while, her husband grabbed her and got her to stand back up, and while she was still crying, he walked out with her and left us all still trying to process what had happened. After that, everyone went back home, and it's just been me and my husband since then. We haven't been speaking about what happened with Connie because it was sad after one point, but right now, I've been feeling a little weird about it. I know that what she did to me was terrible, but I was the one who put forth an ultimatum for the rest of the family and forced them to cut her off, and that also meant that she couldn't have a baby because it meant no more IVF treatments. So, I've been wondering if I was a jerk for doing that or not, and that's what I wanted to know, which is why I'm here for an objective opinion. AITA for telling my family and my in-laws to choose between me and my sister-in-law? Update 1. Hey everyone, I would just like to first thank everyone who responded to my post and commented on it. The majority of the comments agreed that I'm not the one at fault here, so I'm pretty relieved because I had been feeling very heavy and guilty after what had happened. I guess I just hadn't expected her to beg for forgiveness like that, and she had been pretty hysterical, so I guess I started feeling bad for her. I still kind of feel bad for her, but to be honest, this was something that she deserved. It wouldn't have been fair for her to get away with all of this scot-free because regardless of what her intention had been, I still don't know if it really had been meant to be a prank or not, but the consequences of it were not really good for me. And to be honest, I think I'm still going to stick by what I had said about her not being ready to be a mother just yet if she is acting like this. So unhinged and irresponsible just because she's pissed at me, then I'm not sure how she thinks she's ready to handle a baby. It's very obvious to me, and I think it's clear to Pam as well, that Connie has some serious issues. So, until she deals with that, I think it's better for her to stay away from motherhood. I've spoken about this with my husband, and I told him that I'd been feeling really bad about what happened with Connie, but he told me not to worry about it. Apparently, his sister had always been a bit of a hothead, but everyone had thought that she had left that kind of behavior back in her teens. She used to be one of your typical vindictive mean girls back in high school and even in college, but this was not just mean, this was downright cruel, and I knew that she had always had a mean streak in her, but for it to manifest in waves like this, I don't think anyone had seen that coming. Anyway, my husband reassured me, and after that, I felt considerably better about all of this. So I'm going to try and put it all out of my head now and just focus on having a happy rest of my pregnancy. Update 2. Hey. So 8 days have passed since my baby shower, and since the event didn't exactly end well, we hosted a formal dinner for everyone tonight to make it up to them. And obviously, Connie and her husband were not invited this time. I hadn't opened any of the gifts, so I decided to open them today with all my friends and family around me. We were all having quite a nice time until dessert was served, because that was the time around which Connie decided to make a post on social media calling me out on my behavior. Yeah, the irony is astounding that after everything that has happened, she is the one who is calling me out. I had blocked her shortly after the incident had taken place, so I didn't know about the post, but she had tagged a couple of my friends and a few family members on it, so they were notified and read it out to me. It was ridiculous. She had posted that apparently I had always been in competition with her, and I had really thought that I won when I got pregnant before her. And she acknowledged the fact that she had lost her temper a couple of days back during my baby shower and had locked me in the closet. But my way of retaliation has been a lot more severe than what she had done. She posted that I had forced her family to cut her off and made sure that she wouldn't be able to get pregnant by convincing her mother not to contribute to her IVF treatments anymore. But unfortunately, my plan was not going to work because they had decided to pay for the IVF treatment themselves and they were definitely going to have a baby. So, the rest of the family could cut her off, but it was not going to make a difference to her because she was determined to become a mother and start her own family. And that family would be far better than the one she was born in, since apparently her both family was too busy sucking up to me instead of looking after the only daughter that they had. I tried really hard to feel offended at that post, but honestly, it was just such a huge joke that I ended up laughing at it, and everyone else followed me. So, we brushed it off as a big joke and didn't even talk about it because I wasn't going to let Connie ruin an event for me a second time. I'm pretty sure that she had picked this day on purpose as well to make that post because she wanted to gain sympathy and attention, but unfortunately, nobody really has any of that to spare for her, not after what she has done at least. Update 3. Hey. So I have great news for everyone. I recently gave birth to a really beautiful and healthy baby girl. She is 6 weeks old now, and I already love her more than anything in this world. In fact, my husband and I are already fighting over who loves her more, but we know for a fact that we love her the most. Motherhood has been beautiful so far, and I've had my fair share of struggles, but this has made it worth it. But this update is not going to be about my daughter, even though I could totally go on writing about her. This is actually going to be about Connie because she's getting divorced, and I'm honestly not surprised that this is happening. I heard from a couple of people that she and her husband have been living separately for the past couple of weeks, and they have finally announced on social media that due to irreconcilable differences, they are going to be separating. Apparently, they had tried really hard to make it work in the past couple of months after the incident with me, but I guess the stress of everything just got to them, and they can't be together anymore. And I don't think it's going to be an amicable divorce because they have decided to sell their business, and had it been a mutual thing, I don't think they would have tried to do that because that business was their first baby, and they had put in a lot of hard work into it. It's sad that they are separating, but not very shocking. Connie's parents are still not speaking to her, though, even though I have told them that I would be fine with it if they decided to get back in touch with her after the news of the divorce broke. But they told me that unless she apologizes to everyone and does it sincerely, they are not interested in having any contact with her. Honestly, I count myself to be very lucky that I have such supportive and loving in-laws because I don't think everybody has been blessed by people like them in their lives. My own parents have also been incredibly supportive ever since I gave birth and even before that, and I feel really lucky that I have such a great support system around me. Connie could have had the same for herself if she had just bothered to be nice to the people around her. But well, that was never one of her strong suits. At this point, I don't even feel angry, I just feel bad for her. She could have had a good life regardless of the unexplained fertility issues, but she chose this for herself. Anyway, that's none of my concern anymore, and I just felt like I had to share this here so I could get it out of my system. But now all I'm going to do is focus on raising my daughter. And yeah, I can't wait for all the great parts of motherhood. Now on to the next story. Story 6. My mom said I shouldn't come for Christmas because my step-grandparents hated me and would cut their inheritance if we stayed in touch. My stepdad's parents, who despise me, would be at Christmas, so my mom told me I wasn't welcome. I severed all contact with them and withdrew their financial support. But a few months later, they were at my house. Long pauses at the beginning of phone calls have always annoyed me since they seldom contain pleasant news. My mother's hesitancy on the other end of the telephone, 3 days before Christmas, told me everything I needed to know before she even said anything. Erica, honey, I think it would be better if you didn't come home for Christmas this year. I almost dropped my mug of coffee. Mom, what are you talking about? It's just, well, Richard's parents are coming and they don't want to see you. And they've made it quite clear. In an attempt to comprehend what I was hearing, I collapsed onto my couch. My stepdad Richard had been married to my mother since I was 10 years old. And although his parents had never been fond of me, this was different. My mother chose them over me in this situation. I tried to maintain my composure as I said, since Dad passed away, we've always celebrated Christmas together. It's our custom. I know, honey, but what? You're seriously picking other people over your own daughter. No matter what reason she offered, the silence that ensued was terrible. Her voice was strained when she did speak. Erica, they've threatened to cut Richard out of their will if they find out we're still in contact with you. They told us they won't leave him an inheritance and will stop talking to us altogether. I was going to yell, so this is about money? Quickly, no, it's not just that, she said. I've told them that we haven't been in touch with you for years. I need you to go along with this. It's just this once. There was no comedy in my laughter. You want me to pretend I don't exist in your life? That's your solution. Richard's parents are difficult people, Erica. They're spiteful and stubborn. We need to make sure they believe no one in the family talks to you anymore. You need to understand. I ended the call. I was no longer able to listen. You would have to go back more than 20 years to comprehend why Richard's parents detested me so much. When I was 4 years old, my real dad passed away in a vehicle accident. Before she met Richard, a widower with a daughter named Hannah who was 9 years old, it was just Mom and me against the world for 6 years. Richard and Hannah moved into our home after they were married. At first, everything was okay. I got along well enough with Hannah. At times we quarreled like sisters, hurling pillows at one another and squabbling over who got the remote control. All typical child behavior. However, Richard's parents detested me from the beginning. They referred to me as impolite and unruly. They would comment, "It's obvious she grew up without a father." As if I weren't even there. They would bring Hannah gifts when they came to visit, but nothing for me. They would never speak to me, but they would chat through and around me. When I was 14, the worst of it occurred. Hannah and I were left with Richard's parents while Mom and Richard went on vacation. Normally, Mom's sister, Aunt Sarah, would host us, but she was occupied at the moment. Despite their reluctance, Richard's parents decided to have us, especially me. Hannah and I argued over the laptop after spending a week together locked up. Tensions were high, and we were both really bored. I gave her a gentle shove during the fight, but she lost her equilibrium, fell awkwardly, and fractured her arm. Hannah let out a scream that had my blood run down my spine. Her grandparents rushed over. Her grandma called Richard in a fit of hysteria while her grandfather took her to the hospital. She screamed into the phone, "You have to come home now. Erica beat Hannah badly and broke her arm. She needs to be in a psychiatric clinic. She's completely out of control." Everything changed after that call. They stole my phone, locked me in a bedroom, and only unlocked the door to let food in. They referred to me as a rabid animal and threatened to put me in juvenile jail. 3 days after taking a short trip, Mom and Richard returned home. In a fit of rage, Richard claimed he couldn't trust himself around me. I was sent to spend 2 months with Aunt Sarah. Richard hardly talked to me when I got home. Ironically, the incident strengthened our bond, and Hannah and I swiftly reconciled. I never had anger management difficulties, so my parents had me go to therapy after that. The atmosphere at home was oppressive. It was like fleeing prison when I turned 18 and moved to a different place for college. I only communicated with Mom and Hannah. When I was in college, I worked really hard to succeed. While studying management and administration, my buddy Olivia and I were able to secure internships at her father's restaurant company during our junior year. Everyone was taken aback by the development plan I created. Profits increased in a matter of months. When it did work, Olivia's father gave me a job opportunity. When I graduated, Olivia wanted me to be her executive director when he turned over the restaurant management business to her. I would effectively be her right-hand lady, in charge of modernization and business development. I changed that chain of restaurants with Olivia. We built a mobile app, established food delivery services, and set up areas where patrons could use laptops to place food orders. In order to demonstrate how hygienic and effective the kitchens were, we set up live stream cameras in each restaurant. We created designated areas for selfies and began culinary lessons. Young folks began to pour in. We drew in a ton of new clients while retaining the old ones. When business took off, I was suddenly paid more than I could have ever imagined. I had savings for the first time in my life. At that point, Mom called to discuss Richard's work-related issues. She said that he had been fired. "We're struggling to make the mortgage payments." Richard then picked up the phone. "Erica, I'm sorry for everything. You're our only hope right now." I thus consented to assist. I sent them money each month to cover their mortgage. I continued to pay even after Richard eventually secured part-time employment. I didn't find it difficult, and they had become accustomed to the assistance. I believed I was purchasing a stronger bond with them. I was mistaken. I spent what seemed like hours sitting on my couch, staring at my phone. After that terrible chat with Mom, my mind was jumbled. I needed someone who would listen to me. I rang Hannah's phone. "Hey sis, what's up?" Hannah's upbeat tone was a stark contrast to my own emotions. "Mom just called." I answered, a little trembling in my voice. "She told me not to come home for Christmas because your grandparents will be there. Your grandparents threatened to cut Richard out of their will if they found out they still talk to me. Apparently, she's been telling them for years that they don't have any contact with me." Hannah seldom ever used profanity. "What the hell is wrong with them?" she said. "She wants me to play along," I said. "Pretend I'm not part of the family anymore, so your grandparents will leave the money someday." Hannah answered, "Well, the hell with it," with firmness. "If you're not welcome there, then I'm not coming either. If they're choosing money over you, then they can do Christmas without both of us." My eyes filled with tears. Hannah was the one member of my family who always had my back, even after everything we had been through. I felt a little better once I hung up with Hannah. I gave some friends I knew had no family Christmas plans a call. By the end of the evening, Hannah and 5 of my friends and I had planned an unplanned orphan Christmas at my flat. Hannah showed up the day before Christmas with a bag full of decorations and a little suitcase. "I raided the dollar store," she exclaimed when she threw tinsel and glittery decorations on my coffee table. "Your place needs some Christmas spirit." We drank wine, caught up, and decorated my apartment that evening. Neither of us brought up Richard, Mom, or the inheritance issue. For a few hours, nothing had changed. The formal, stressful events we had experienced as children at home were not at all like Christmas Day around noon. My pals showed up with food, beverages, or games. We probably drank more than we should have, ate too much, and laughed too loudly. It was authentic, yet it wasn't conventional. Even Hannah acknowledged at the conclusion of the evening that it was the finest Christmas she had experienced in a long time. Naturally, though, reality has a way of getting in the way. Before going to bed, I was browsing Instagram when I came upon a post from Mom. In their living room, she was grinning beside Richard's parents, who were all dressed in similar Christmas sweaters. It said, "So blessed to spend this special day with family." Family. The word made my stomach turn like a dagger. I was no longer family. It was inconvenient to conceal the truth about me. That night, I was unable to sleep. Every monthly mortgage payment I'd been making and the Instagram post kept playing back in my head. I believed I was mending old wounds and constructing bridges each time I sent that money. I now saw that I had only been purchasing the false sense of family. The following morning, I decided. I canceled the automatic transfer to my parents' mortgage account by using my banking app. I was tired of being exploited. Even if it was small, it was 2 weeks later. Thankful for the post-holiday influx of new restaurant patrons who had made New Year's resolutions to try new places, I poured myself into my work. I welcomed the diversion as Olivia and I worked on plans to open a new site. Then Mom called. Part of me wanted to hear what she had to say, but I almost didn't respond. "Erica, there's a problem with the mortgage payment," she said, without even extending a greeting. "Did you forget to send it?" "I didn't forget," I answered, maintaining a steady tone. "I canceled it." Silence fell for a beat. "What do you mean you canceled it?" "I mean I'm not paying your mortgage anymore," she said in a panic. "But we're counting on that money. The payment is due today." "You should have thought about that before you betrayed me for your in-laws' money," I replied. "You chose them over me. Now you can ask them to pay your mortgage." "This is about Christmas, Erica. You're being childish." "We explained why. You explained that money is more important to you than I am." Message received. Then her voice shifted from one of terror to one of accusation. "I know what you did. You convinced Hannah not to come for Christmas. You turned her against us." "What?" "I didn't do shit. Do you know what I had to tell Richard's parents? That she was seriously ill. I had to lie and make up a whole story because of you. What I was hearing was unbelievable. You've gone mad because of this inheritance thing. Normal people don't invent illnesses for their children. Mom. They don't disown them for money. You have no idea what you're talking about," she said. "After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me lately, Mom? Besides kick me out of Christmas and lie about my existence." She ended the call. The months that followed were calm. I didn't get in touch and Mom didn't call again. Hannah stayed in contact and went to visit whenever she could. She had turned into the only family member who had not betrayed me and my only true link to my former existence. I threw myself into new initiatives and concentrated on my work. Olivia and I opened a new restaurant across town as part of our restaurant brand expansion. It was a good business. Life was steady. However, when I thought about my family, I still felt empty. Then Hannah called one evening in late April. "Hey, I'm going to come visit you tomorrow. Is that okay?" Her voice seemed strange, but I didn't press the issue. When Hannah felt like it, she had always been straightforward. My doorbell rang shortly after noon the following day. When I opened it, Mom and Richard were standing there in addition to Hannah. I took a step back and nearly slammed the door, asking myself what the hell. Hannah raised her hands. "Hear them out, Erica. Please." It was clear from their faces. Hannah's begging, Richard's uneasiness, and Mom's anxiety, that this would not be a quick chat. I suppose they were strangers by now because they filed into my living room like strangers. Mom held her handbag close to her chest awkwardly. Richard stood beside the window. Hannah cleared her throat. "So, I think Mom and Dad have something they want to say." Mom inhaled deeply. "Erica, we came to apologize. What we did. What I did at Christmas was wrong." She appeared to think that was sufficient, but I waited for more. "That's it?" I inquired at last. We're missing you, Richard continued. The house isn't the same without you. I didn't care that my voice was rising. The house I wasn't welcome in at Christmas? The house where you pretend I don't exist whenever your parents visit? You're going to have to do better than "we miss you." Hannah put her hand on my arm. Let him finish, Erica. Mom gave a clumsy smile. You're right to be angry. We betrayed you. I betrayed you. I put money ahead of my own daughter, and I've been sick about it ever since. Your financial assistance is no longer required, Richard stated. I found a new job, better than the old one. We're managing the mortgage payments just fine. That's not why we're here. Then why are you here? Because we're family, her voice cracked. And we almost threw that away for what? For my in-laws' approval? For money we might get someday? It was wrong. I hesitated because of something about her genuineness. I had been prepared for manipulations, guilt trips, and justifications. I wasn't expecting real regret. I asked Richard, what about your parents? They still planning to write you out of the will if they find out we talk? Richard's gaze shifted to his hands. I called them after you stopped sending money. Told them I wasn't going to pretend anymore, that you're my daughter too. They flew off the handle, threatened to disown me, just like they said they would. We had a huge fight. So what changed? I did, said Hannah. I called Grandma and Grandpa and told them I knew everything, that I fully supported you and Dad, and if they couldn't accept you as part of our family, then they'd lose me too. Mom gave a nod. They called back 3 days later, said they'd calmed down and were willing to accept things. They're not ready to lose Hannah. I was at a loss for words. I wanted my family back, therefore I wanted to forgive them. Another part recalled how effortlessly they'd ignored me when it suited them. I was honest when I said, I don't know if I can trust you again. You shut me out when it suited you. What happens next time they threaten to cut you off? There won't be a next time, Mom said. We've drawn a line. You're our daughter, and that's non-negotiable. I glanced at Mom, whose eyes were full of tears, then at Richard, who appeared more sincere than I'd seen him in years, and finally at Hannah, who gave me a supportive nod. I'm not saying everything's fine now, I said with caution. It's going to take time, but I'm willing to try. Mom sobbed and came running to give me a hug. I didn't want to fully surrender, so I stayed rigid in her arms. When Mom eventually let me go, Richard remarked, we've been looking into family therapy, all 4 of us, to work through the old stuff, not just this recent mess. Therapy. My astonishment was evident. When I was a teenager, Richard had always laughed at my forced anger management classes. It was Dad's idea, Hannah said with a proud expression on her face. He says we all have baggage we need to unpack. Richard said, I should have defended you years ago, after the accident with Hannah's arm. I knew it wasn't your fault, but I let my parents dictate how I treated you. That wasn't right. I reflected on the years I had spent trying to gain his approval, the therapy sessions in which counselors attempted to fix me when I wasn't damaged, and the fact that I had continued to provide for them financially in the hopes that they would still love me. Hours of agonizing but important discourse lasted that evening. We discussed the Christmas betrayal that had been the final straw, the past scars I believed had healed but obviously hadn't, and what it would take to regain trust. We had a plan by the time they departed, which included regular dinners for the 4 of us, no in-laws allowed, weekly family therapy sessions beginning the following month, and explicit rules about what was and wasn't appropriate moving forward. It was a start, but it wasn't forgiveness yet. Hannah remained after they left, with the familiarity of a sister who knew she was welcome. She fell into my couch. You okay? She inquired. I don't know, was my honest response. Part of me wants to believe them. Another part is waiting for the other shoe to drop. She pulled at a loose thread on my throw cushion and said, I understand, but for what it's worth, I think they mean it this time. You should have seen Mom after Christmas. She was a mess. Kept saying she'd made a horrible mistake. Did they ask you to arrange this? Hannah gave a headshake. It was my idea. I was tired of being the go-between, of hearing them talk about how much they missed you while knowing they'd hurt you so badly. I reclined, suddenly worn out. I'm not sure family therapy is going to fix everything. Probably not, added Hannah. But it's a step, and I'll be there too, making sure they don't backslide. Regardless of blood, I grinned at my sister, my true sister. When did you get so wise? Learn from the best, she replied, putting her hand on my shoulder. You never gave up on me, even when we were kids and I was a total brat. Now it's my turn to not give up on this family. After Hannah departed that evening, I sat by myself in my apartment, contemplating forgiveness, second chances, and family. Both the one you choose and the one you are born into. I wasn't sure if I was prepared to give my parents back complete control. Once lost trust is difficult to rebuild, but perhaps, just perhaps, we could use the fragments of what had been destroyed to create something new. As you can anticipate, the first family therapy session was quite uncomfortable. We were asked to gather in a circle and discuss our expectations with Dr. Levine, a kind-eyed, no-nonsense woman in her 50s. Mom wiped at her eyes and whispered, "I just want my family back. I want to understand why I was so easily disposable," I replied. Richard stirred uneasily. "I want to be a better father to both my daughters." "Always the mediator," Hannah declared. "I want us to be honest with each other. No more secrets or lies." Dr. Levine gave a nod. "Those are all valid desires. This won't be easy, but acknowledging what you want is a good start." We had frequent meetings throughout the ensuing weeks. We continued to show up, even though the sessions occasionally turned into arguments or tears. We slowly and carefully worked through years of miscommunications, grudges, and anxieties. We discussed how Richard's parents had used their inheritance as a weapon to dominate the family, why I had felt obligated to provide for them despite everything that had transpired, and the Christmas treachery that had finally crushed me. We began repairing our relationship in little steps outside of treatment. Mom used to call just to talk. Richard believed I might find the restaurant management articles he provided me interesting. Hannah and I continued to have a closer, sisterly closeness than before. After 2 months of treatment, Richard's disclosure about his own upbringing was a turning point. "My parents always used money to control me," he recalled. "As a schoolboy, if I didn't behave exactly as they wanted, they'd threaten to cut me off. When I wanted to marry my first wife, they threatened to disinherit me because they didn't approve of her. I stood my ground then, but after she died, I guess I didn't have the fight left in me. So when they started treating Erica the same way," he looked at me with sincere regret as he confessed, "I fell back into old patterns." At Dr. Levine's prompting, "I'm so sorry, Erica. I failed you that day." Something changed within me. For the first time, I saw Richard as someone who had been controlled his entire life, just like I had been, rather than as the stepfather who had deceived me. Better was due to both of us. By the 3rd month of therapy, I informed him we were prepared to put our new family dynamics to the test in the real world. Mom asked me to join them for dinner in the house where I grew up. It had been before Christmas when I last visited. Anxiety made my stomach turn as I pulled into the driveway. What if Richard's parents appeared out of the blue? What if this whole thing was a sophisticated ruse? However, the scent of my favorite dish, Mom's lasagna, greeted me as soon as I entered, and the dining room was adorned with pictures. Pictures of Hannah and I together, pictures of me graduating from college, and pictures of the 4 of us in better times. "We put these back up," Mom said as she followed my eyes. "They belong here. You belong here." It seemed like progress, even if there were still awkward pauses and moments when old tensions threatened to reappear during dinner. Richard pulled me aside after supper. After saying, "I need to show you something," he ushered me into his office. He had a legal paper on his desk. "What's this?" I said. "I've been working with a lawyer to ensure that whatever happens with my parents' inheritance won't affect what I leave to you and Hannah. You'll both be treated equally in my will, no matter what." I was dumbfounded when I looked at him. "It's not about the money," he rapidly explained. "It's about making sure you know that you are my daughter, not by blood, but by choice. And nothing, not my parents, not their money, will ever change that again." I cried then, even though I didn't weep much. That night, I contacted Hannah on the way home. I informed her, You won't believe what just happened. As I described the events of the night, I believe it, she declared. Dad's been working on that thing for weeks. He wanted it to be perfect for you. I asked out loud, when did everything change so much? When you stood up for yourself, Hannah said. You showed them they couldn't have it both ways. They couldn't treat you like garbage and still expect your financial support. It made them realize what they were losing. She was correct. I had forced them to make a decision by emotionally and financially cutting them off. Surprisingly, they had picked me. Dr. Levine requested us to discuss our progress at the following treatment session. I've learned that I can't control how others treat me, but I can control how I respond, I replied. I don't have to keep paying, literally or figuratively, for people to love me. I've learned that I married a strong woman, Richard stated, addressing his mother, who raised an even stronger daughter, and that standing up to my parents was long overdue. I've learned that family isn't just about blood or obligation, Mom said. It's a choice we make every day. Hannah grinned. I've learned that my sister is a badass who doesn't take crap from anyone anymore. That made us all laugh. We all gathered to dinner at a brand new restaurant that my employer had opened 6 months after Christmas that nearly killed our family. I came to the crucial realization that we were no longer the same family as previously as we sat around the table, laughing and telling stories. The foundation of the family had been fear, duty, and unspoken grudges. It wasn't flawless. We still experienced horrible days. Even though Richard's parents had been relatively silent since our reunion, they were still a complex part of our lives. Sometimes old hurts come back. However, we were determined to resolve it together, and that was what made all the difference. I was starting to think. Now on to the next story. Story 7. I opened my marriage, lost my husband, and now I'm fighting to win him back. Is it too late? I'm here to seek guidance on how to save my remaining marriage. Let me begin by stating that I have been with my spouse for 7 years and we have been married for 5 of those years. I'll call us Skylar and James for privacy's sake. In our 2nd year of community college, we got to know one another. James went on to receive a 4-year degree in business administration from a university that provides remote programs at the community college, while I obtained a 2-year degree in office management. In the present, James is 27 and I am 26, and we intended to have a child later this year. Having 4 children, ideally 2 boys and 2 girls, was our desire. Both of our families loved us and we had a really happy marriage. This is where I made a big error. I formed a relationship with a delivery driver for one of the 3 major delivery companies, which some could refer to as a work-husband relationship. To keep things private, I'll call him Jaden. Jaden has been delivering to my office for about 2 years, at the age of 25 and unmarried. Unquestionably, we clicked right away. It wasn't romantic, but there was a spark that pulled me to him every time he made a delivery. We would converse for at least 10 minutes. I started to look forward to seeing him and always made sure to be honest with him when he showed up. Our chat went farther than normal one day. Jaden said he wanted to ask me a personal question. He said he didn't want to offend me or endanger our business relationship because it was so personal. I encouraged him to ask and reassured him that was okay. I feel a very strong attraction to you and wondered if you felt it too, he admitted. At that point, his audacity shocked and embarrassed me. After giving it some thought, I confessed that I felt it as well. Jaden continued by saying that if I weren't married, he would have asked me out. The conversation ended when I thanked him for the compliment. That was the last of him. Our conversations grew awkward and short throughout the course of the following week. I was so ashamed that I thought I had gone too far. Even as James and I continued to enjoy our married lives at home, the guilt persisted. To be clear, I have always been totally happy with James as a husband, friend, and lover. I thought he would have said the same of me at the time. For me, he was ideal. Nevertheless, I mistakenly started to dream about having both my devoted husband and a relationship with Jaden that went beyond business chats. Later, I discovered that this is frequently called eating cake. Intrigued, I began reading up on open marriages and polyamory. I initially thought the concept was nasty and ridiculous. I was certain James would not consent, and even if he did, I wanted to prevent our marriage from being harmed and our family from becoming estranged. Weeks went by and my married life was still great, but there were still thoughts of Jaden. I came upon a blog article by a lady in an open marriage with the heading, "It Doesn't Hurt to Ask." When I went back to the subject, she talked about how she sought a relationship with a man she met while volunteering, even though she loved her spouse. After 2 years of suppressing her emotions, she finally asked her husband on a lengthy drive. He was interested, which surprised her. For years later, they apparently had a stronger, happier connection after opening their marriage and finding other lovers. Because it mirrored exactly what I wanted but was too scared to question James about, her tale struck a chord with me. Then one Sunday morning, I made the decision to bring up the topic as we were relaxing at home, conversing and using our phones to browse the internet. "I just read this online post about open marriages," I said immediately to James. "How do you feel about them? Are you talking about couples sleeping with other people?" he questioned, glancing at me. I reaffirmed and inquired about his thoughts once again. In response, James said he found it repulsive and added that if someone wanted to sleep together, they should simply seek a divorce. It's really becoming popular here in the US and other Western countries. In an attempt to diffuse the situation, but his expression made it obvious that he was disgusted by the subject, so I quickly changed the topic. His response made me decide that I would never bring it up again since I didn't want to endanger our marriage, which I thought was fantastic. A few weeks later, James and I were snuggling in bed together, enjoying the glow from a fantastic evening. He remarked abruptly, "Who did you have in mind when you brought up open marriages last week?" As I lay on his chest, unable to see his face, I went cold. I gently lifted my head to look at him, and a pit developed in my stomach. "What are you discussing? What are you saying?" I stumbled. James clarified that he has read studies indicating that a woman's reference to an open relationship with her boyfriend frequently indicates that she has previously cheated or has another lover in mind. I was shocked by what he said. In fact, I was shaken to my very core. "I know you too well," James remarked after realizing the effect of his comments. "Just be honest. I can tell you're hiding something." I could have stopped there, but instead, I remained silent, turned my head away and finally told him, "I have never cheated on you and would never do so. Rather, I acknowledged that there was someone at work I may think about if we ever discussed an open marriage." "Tell me about this work friend," James insisted. I reluctantly started to describe Jaden and our encounters, including the moment he revealed his emotions for me. I didn't reveal, though, that I felt the same way about it. I was frightened by James's next statement. "You know, technically, you've already cheated on me." I retaliated defensively, saying, "I haven't cheated. Your relationship with this Jaden guy is what's known as an emotional affair," James retorted. James gave me an explanation of the term because I had never heard it before. I listened in frustration as he explained the workings of emotional affairs. James finally proposed that we end the conversation since he needed to go to bed because he had an early start the next day. I couldn't fall asleep, but he did. Rather, I picked up my phone and began looking up emotional affairs. What James had asserted was supported by article after article. My relationship with Jaden was more than simply an emotional one. It was a full-fledged one. I was overcome with guilt. I felt like I had let my hubby down. I went downstairs to make myself some tea because I couldn't sleep, and at around 4 o'clock in the morning, I fell asleep on the couch. James kissed me awake at 6:45 a.m. "I'm heading out for work," he declared. As usual, I kissed him back and told him I loved him, but this time with guilt weighing heavily on my mind. "I made it clearer than ever," I said. "You should start your day. It's almost 7 a.m. After making love for a few days, we were laying in bed once more when James abruptly remarked, "If you truly want to, I'd be willing to try an open marriage. Why are you bringing this up now?" I questioned, stunned. He clarified that he had been considering our earlier chats and reasoned that if it was something we wanted, we should attempt it while we were still young. I pledged never to endanger our marriage or our love, but I did show cautious attention. I told him, "You are the most significant person in my life. If our love bond is strong, it will withstand infidelity," James retorted. James didn't respond when I retorted, A mutual open relationship wouldn't be considered infidelity because we'd both agree to it. Consider our marriage open starting right now, he remarked instead, surprised again. I told him to calm down and that we needed to set ground rules. He made the following specifics. We had to let people know ahead of time who we would be sleeping with and when. We had to later, without going into graphic detail, tell each other about the incident. There are no exceptions to the rule that all types of closeness must be protected. I accepted his conditions and suggested a few more. We would maintain the privacy of our open marriage. We would pledge to stay together and prevent these adulterous affairs from ruining our marriage. James declared that he was unable to accept either of these terms. He refused to talk about it more and just said he didn't and wouldn't agree to them when I questioned why. I was worried since this felt totally out of character for James. I snuggled up to him in spite of my discomfort, and we dozed off. I became uncomfortable with the idea of an open relationship throughout the course of the following month because I thought James might be up to something. I chose not to pursue it and concentrated on leading a typical life. I avoided talking to Jaden at work during this time, limiting our exchanges to trivial subjects like the weather or our respective workloads. Then one day, Jaden asked me if something was wrong and said he truly missed our discussions. I explained to him that I didn't have much time to talk because I was so busy at work and at home. I contemplated whether or not to disclose my open marriage to him. I eventually made the decision to tell him. How I wish I could take that choice back. I asked Jaden to join me for a drink after work because it didn't seem acceptable to have such a chat there. He concurred. We got together at a neighborhood tavern with a terrace outside, which was ideal for the warm early spring weather. I asked him directly whether he would be interested in a relationship after telling him about my newly announced marriage. Without hesitation, he said yes. Although he respected my boundaries, Jaden acknowledged that he had been waiting for me to change his mind and that he had been dreaming about me for months. We talked flirtatiously most of the time that night. We decided to have our first romantic meeting at his flat the next day. I made it clear that I had to depart by 6:30 p.m. to go back home to James, who was still my top priority. I came home that evening and made James a delicious meal. After supper, I told him about my conversation and meeting with Jaden earlier in the day and that we had planned to meet at his apartment the next day, assuming James was still okay with us being married in an open marriage. Despite appearing surprised, James answered, "Oh yes, all right, so you're meeting him tomorrow." As my top focus was him and our relationship, I reassured him that we could still cancel if he so desired. "No," he insisted. "Let's do this." In contrast to our typical embraces, I felt hardness and remoteness in his. I blamed it on nerves. We didn't speak much that night as I concentrated on my own work and James worked in his office. I tried to start an intimate conversation with him before we went to bed, but he stated he was too exhausted and wanted to relax. When I woke up the following morning, James had already left, leaving a text message saying that he had neglected to mention an early meeting. He also mentioned that he would see me that evening. This was not like him, but I brushed it off and went about my day as usual, dressing and going to work. I picked a really lovely clothing that day because I knew I was going out with Jaden after work. I texted James throughout the day, but he didn't reply. I contemplated calling off our date with Jaden, but I now regret not doing so. I got a text from James at 4:17 p.m. He promised to meet me that evening and wrote that he loved me. I was relieved by this and I saw it as his approval to proceed. I'll get right to the point. When Jaden and I first met, our private moment was fierce. There was clearly no love involved, and it wasn't quite as satisfying as it is with James. But because of the unlawful nature of what we were doing and the pure passion, it was physically satisfying. After an hour and a half, I left Jaden's residence and got home shortly after 6:40 p.m. I was shocked to see that James wasn't home yet. I was relieved since it allowed me to take a shower and wash my clothes to get rid of the smell of Jaden's perfume. Despite my physical sense of fulfillment, I was overcome with regret, guilt, and shame. I felt soiled, as though I had violated every fundamental principle in my marriage. I was really anxious and it was a mental tug-of-war. I made a short but beautiful meal and put candles to create a romantic atmosphere, since I was determined to make it up to James. I wanted him to understand how much I loved him and that the sexual relationship with Jaden was meaningless because it was only physical and couldn't compare to the happiness and love I had with James. My hope was that we would make love at the end of the evening. James was still away from home around 7:30 p.m. when I tried to call him. The call went straight to voicemail. I texted him to let him know that dinner was ready when I got home. When I didn't hear back by 8:50 p.m., I became concerned. I kept phoning and texting him, leaving messages, but I never heard back. At last, at approximately 9:30 p.m., James texted me saying, "Don't wait up. I will arrive home late." He didn't respond when I texted him back to inquire where he was and who he was with. I finally dozed off after midnight, emotionally and physically spent. The sound of the shower running in the guest bathroom awakened me up. When I went up to look, I saw that the door was locked, which was completely out of character for James. He did not answer when I knocked. After 10 minutes, James came out, wrapped in a towel, and said nonchalantly, "Hey, how was your night?" After I assured him that everything was okay, he asked me straight out, "Did you have sex with Jaden?" I winced at his directness and urged him to use a different wording. I reluctantly said, "Yes, Jaden and I were together." I then inquired about his whereabouts. James confessed that he had gone out dancing and spent the night at multiple pubs. Because I could smell perfume on his clothing, I was suspicious and questioned who he was with. Upon pressing, I inquired, "Who is she?" He said that he didn't have to identify her because they hadn't shared a bed. Although I was astonished by what he said, I was more offended by his tone and language. James's angry remarks caused me great concern. Although he never used profanity when addressing me, I then questioned him about why he had taken a shower in the guest bathroom. He told me icily that until I had completed 2 STD tests, he would be utilizing the guest bathroom and bedroom. I was devastated by his statements. "This wasn't part of our rules," I objected. "I ensured that Jaden wore protection during all of our activities. Have you never heard of oral HPV or herpes?" James shot back, "Till you're cleared, I won't come within 6 feet of you. Think of this as my personal take on social distancing." I informed James that I wanted to end our marriage right now since I was so distraught and crying. I cried. "This is the last thing I wanted to happen." "No way." James shot back, "I'll have my turn now that you've taken yours." James only stated that he was going to bed since he had an early meeting and needed rest, even though I started crying more. I sobbed on the couch for the majority of the night before dozing off. When I opened my eyes, James was gone. I tried contacting him during the day, but he didn't pick up. He texted me saying, "Don't wait up for me." I left voicemails and texted, but nobody answered. I felt like I was going crazy because I knew I had probably ruined my marriage. I didn't see Jaden at work that day as there were no deliveries, but I gave him a call at 4:30 p.m. and inquired about our possibility of meeting that night. He acknowledged that I sounded agitated. I told him I wanted to break up with him when we first met, acknowledging that it was a big mistake. I admitted that I just wanted my husband because I loved him. He understood, and all he wanted for was one more connection. Other than that, he would only ever speak to me at work. I consented, and our brief and unremarkable hookup lasted less than 10 minutes and consisted just of a basic posture. Jaden later said to me, "That was awful." I apologized, acknowledging that the entire affair was a tremendous error and not his fault. "You just laid there like a tree trunk." After getting ready and giving him one last hug, I turned to depart. I asked Jaden, bewildered, what he meant when he said, "I never understand when women like you," before I left, but he just muttered, "Nothing," no comment, with a look of utter hatred on his face. I hurried off, sobbing all the way home. How was I able to be so foolish? I had ruined my marriage for nothing at all. I felt filthy once more and thought I was the world's most foolish person. It was 1 a.m. when James finally returned home that evening. I was tired of knowing that I was the only one responsible for ruining my life. James did the same thing on Friday, leaving before I woke up and texting me, "Don't wait up for me." The coldness and distance between us broke my heart. I missed our mornings, evenings, and weekends together, cooking together, going on walks after supper, and chatting about random topics. I sorely missed it when it was all gone. I sent James a text message requesting to speak with him the following morning. "All right," he said, "as long as it's first thing." I asked him where he was going, but he didn't respond. "I'm leaving for the day." It was 1:30 a.m. when he returned home. I just lay in bed and sobbed without saying anything. Without saying anything, James immediately went to bed after taking another shower in the guest bathroom. The following morning, I got up early to await his arrival. He entered the kitchen, poured himself some orange juice, and sat at the table looking at his phone at 7 o'clock in the morning. The atmosphere was lifeless and icy. I approached him, sat on his knee, and whispered, "Look at me." He looked away, but I gently took hold of his face and met his brown eyes. I said, "You have my undying love. I really apologize for the poor choice I made. Not a mistake, but a decision. I will stop at nothing to win back your love and trust." James remained silent while staring at me as if I were crazy. I pleaded, "Are you still in love with me?" He said, "I'm not sure." I sobbed and begged, "I can put this right." He said, "I don't think you can." I said in a fit of rage, "You orchestrated everything, didn't you? Set me up for divorce." James denied it but acknowledged that, based on what he had read, he realized our relationship was probably finished the moment I raised the subject of an open marriage. I questioned him, "Why didn't you just tell me to stop talking to Jaden?" I was devastated by his response. "You can't make someone be faithful. You are either monogamous or not, and it is clear that you are not." He just got up and stated he was going, despite my entreaties not to ruin our marriage. He said he would return after midnight. When I questioned where he was going, "Tomorrow is Easter Sunday," I told him, "Our scheduled departure time is 7 a.m. Go visit the home of my parents. We spend every holiday with them because they adore you." James replied icily, "I'm not going. What am I supposed to tell my parents?" I begged him to come, shocked. "Tell them the truth," he added with a shrug. He packed a gym bag and left the house without saying anything more, despite my repeated pleas for him to stay. I feel totally deflated and ruined inside. I would appreciate any guidance or recommendations regarding actions I can take to keep my marriage intact. I'm particularly interested in hearing from those who have had similar situations with open marriages and whether or not a couple can move over such a betrayal after an open relationship. Have you been able to successfully reconcile? I appreciate you hearing my tale. I'm going to bed now so I can spend the rest of the day crying. Update 1. I would want to express my gratitude to everyone who replied with comments and encouragement. I was able to get through the past several days because to it. Many individuals properly chastised me and called me derogatory things, but I deserve it and I also value your opinions. 2 of the worst days of my life have been Easter Sunday and today. When I pulled up to my parents' house, they asked me right away, "Where's James?" I lied to them and said he couldn't make it because of an emergency at work. I didn't want the family get-together to be disturbed. At first, my family believed my tale, but as the day wore on, they began to suspect that I wasn't phoning or texting my husband as I usually do. I sent multiple phony texts and claimed to have responses from James assuring everyone he was still busy at work and would give me a call tomorrow in order to allay their suspicions. To be honest, he never texted or called, not even to see whether I had made it safely. I was devastated by this. On Monday, I had intended to spend the night at my parents' house and discuss our marital issues with them. I was afraid they would be angry and despise me if I did this. I told them this morning, and everything went exactly as I had expected. They shouted at me, called me horrible names, and said that I wasn't brought up this way. When my sister was summoned over, she started to lash out at me as well. I told them I realized what I had done was horrible and sobbed. I promised them that I had grown from the experience and would never do the same thing again. I informed them that regaining James' love and trust would be my only priority going forward. Ultimately, they told me they loved me and would pray for our marriage to be saved, even if they were furious with me. On Monday night, I took a car home. I texted and called James during the day, but he didn't respond. He had gone to Florida to see his parents and would be back on Sunday, according to a note on the counter when I got home. We had arranged to go there together in early May, so I felt terrible. Now that strategy is shattered because of me. I despise myself for now. That's all I have to say. I'm simply so unhappy and dejected. The fact that I'm no longer crying frightens me. Tears no longer seem worth shedding because of the depth of my hurt and regret. Update 2. I didn't intend to publish again for almost a year, but I decided to offer an update because the community showed such a great deal of interest. I have some good news as well as some negative news. The first piece of terrible news is that I'm divorced. Back in December, it was decided. James ultimately came to the conclusion that he couldn't stay married to me once I started seeing another man. He claimed that he was ashamed to be seen with me in public and that he would never be able to trust me again. He claimed that he regained his masculinity after the divorce. I disagree. He never lost his manhood, and only our families are aware of my brief relationship with Jaden. Well, anything. The good news, no, the amazing news is that last month, James and I resumed our dating life. It's been great since Valentine's Day when we reconnected. Our passion level is unmatched, much higher than when we initially started dating 7 years ago. But we only see each other when he wants to, which has been around once a week. James has stated unequivocally that this is merely a physical matter and that we will never again be a couple, get married, or live together. I'll take what I can get, but I'm not really comfortable with this. I want to get James back. I would like to have his children. If I am unable to achieve that, I wouldn't baby trap him, so don't get me wrong. All I want is to have kids with him without getting married. I've considered how we could divide custody and still work things out. I don't want children with anybody else, even though I know it seems weird, but I love him. I understand that doing this would probably put any future relationships I might have with other men in jeopardy, but I only want James. That's all I have to say for now, and until something significant occurs, I doubt I'll post again. However, I would adore hearing your thoughts about my predicament. Do you believe that my decision to date James is insane? Is it better for me to go on and find someone else to start a family with? P.S. Jaden has never been an option. I simply made a poor choice with him and I will never do it again. Now on to the next story. Story 8. I am thinking of breaking up with my boyfriend after meeting his family. I can't tell if I'm being overdramatic. My wife and I have been married for 7 years, and while our relationship has had its ups and downs, we've always strived to support each other. We share many interests, from hiking and cooking to binge-watching TV shows. However, there is one area where we often find ourselves at odds. TV shows that contain sexual or nudity scenes. Our relationship began with an understanding and mutual respect for each other's boundaries. I'm not a huge TV consumer, so avoiding certain shows never seemed like a big deal to me. My wife, on the other hand, has a complicated history with such content. In her previous relationship, she was sexually cheated on, an experience that left deep emotional scars. As a result, she is extremely sensitive to any content that includes attractive or hot female bodies, and she feels a need to ensure I avoid these triggers. We usually try to avoid shows that might contain sexual or nudity scenes. We check reviews, look up parental guides, and even rely on recommendations from friends who know our preferences. This system worked well for a while, but recently, an incident with the show Three Body Problem on Netflix put our approach to the test. It started innocently enough. We were both intrigued by the premise of Three Body Problem and decided to give it a try. We didn't anticipate any issues, as the show was primarily marketed as a science fiction thriller. However, as we watched, an unexpected scene featuring female nudity caught us both off guard. I fumbled for the remote, trying to turn it off, but my wife was already visibly upset. Her reaction was immediate and intense. She got extremely angry at me for not turning the show off quickly enough. I tried to explain that I was caught off guard and didn't expect the scene, but my words did little to calm her down. She felt betrayed and hurt, as if I had willingly exposed her to something she was trying so hard to avoid. This incident wasn't isolated. It highlighted a recurring issue in our relationship and brought to the surface the unresolved trauma she carries from her past. While I'm personally fine with avoiding certain shows to make her feel comfortable, A small part of me also feels like I may be missing out on some really good shows like Game of Thrones, which are known for their compelling storylines despite their mature content. The incident with Three Body Problem made it clear that we needed to address this issue more effectively. I wanted to support my wife and respect her boundaries, but I also needed to find a way for us to enjoy TV together without constant fear of triggering her discomfort. This led me to question whether we could find a compromise or if this was something I needed to accept for the rest of our lives. As the conflict continued to simmer, I turned to an online forum for advice. The overwhelming response was that while my wife's past trauma should be respected, the current dynamic was unhealthy. Many suggested exploring therapy to help her cope with these triggers and to improve our communication and understanding. This idea resonated with me, and I realized that seeking professional help might be the best way forward for both of us. My wife's past trauma is rooted in a deeply painful experience from her previous relationship before we met. She was involved with someone who betrayed her trust in the most intimate way. Her ex-partner cheated on her multiple times, and the infidelity often involved other women who were physically attractive, leading my wife to feel inadequate and deeply hurt. This betrayal shattered her self-esteem and left her with a lingering sense of insecurity around sexual and physical attractiveness. The scars from that relationship ran deep. My wife confided in me about the emotional turmoil she endured, the feelings of worthlessness, and the anxiety that followed her long after the relationship ended. She worked hard to rebuild her self-confidence, but certain triggers still remained. One of the most significant triggers is seeing other women, sexual, or nudity scenes on television. These scenes remind her of the betrayal and reignite feelings of insecurity and mistrust in our relationship. My wife's reactions to sexual content on TV have been profound. Even a brief glimpse of nudity or a sexually suggestive scene can cause her significant distress. She becomes visibly upset, her anxiety levels spike, and she often needs reassurance that I'm not comparing her to the women on screen. Her immediate reaction is to make me look away or turn off the show, fearing that I might find these women more attractive than her. Understanding her triggers and wanting to support her, I've adapted to these needs. From the beginning of our relationship, we established a practice of carefully selecting the TV shows and movies we watch together. We avoid shows that are known for their explicit content. Instead, we focus on genres like comedy, drama, and documentaries, which are less likely to contain scenes that might upset her. Before starting a new series or movie, we do our due diligence. We read reviews, check parental guides, and sometimes even ask friends for their opinions on the content. This process has helped us avoid many potential triggers, and for the most part, it has worked well. However, there have been a few slip-ups, like the incident with Three Body Problem, where we were caught off guard by unexpected content despite our precautions. Despite our precautions, my wife's anxiety about sexual content can still make TV watching a tense experience. For example, when a character on a show starts flirting or a scene takes a suggestive turn, she becomes visibly tense, ready to shield her eyes or change the channel. Her anxiety often makes it hard for us to relax and enjoy the show, as I'm also on edge, trying to anticipate and avoid anything that might upset her. This vigilance means we miss out on many popular shows known for their rich storylines and cultural impact. Shows like Game of Thrones, Westworld, and even some critically acclaimed films are off the table because of their explicit content. While I'm not a huge TV consumer, I sometimes feel a sense of loss knowing that we're bypassing some exceptional storytelling and cultural phenomena. Our usual approach to selecting TV shows is quite systematic. We rely heavily on online resources like IMDb's Parental Guide, which provides detailed content warnings for each episode. We also use streaming services that offer the option to skip certain scenes, although this feature isn't always available. Additionally, we sometimes preview episodes separately before deciding to watch them together, ensuring there are no unexpected surprises. Despite these measures, the fear of triggering my wife's discomfort looms large. Every new show or movie feels like a gamble, and even with all our precautions, the risk of encountering an upsetting scene remains. This constant vigilance has taken a toll on both of us, creating an underlying tension in an activity that should be relaxing and enjoyable. The incident with Three Body Problem was a stark reminder of the fragility of our current approach. My wife's immediate anger and my subsequent guilt highlighted the unresolved nature of this issue. It became clear that simply avoiding certain content wasn't a sustainable solution. We needed to address the root of the problem and find a way to move forward that would allow both of us to enjoy our time together without constant anxiety. The incident with 3 Body Problem began like any other evening. We had heard positive things about the show, and its science fiction premise intrigued both of us. We settled on the couch, eager to dive into a new series. We didn't anticipate any issues, as the show was primarily marketed as a science fiction thriller. As the first episode unfolded, we were both captivated by the intricate plot and stunning visuals. However, about halfway through the episode, an unexpected scene featuring female nudity caught us off guard. I fumbled for the remote, trying to turn it off, but my wife was visibly upset. Her reaction was immediate and intense. She turned to me, her eyes filled with a mix of anger and hurt. "Why didn't you turn it off sooner?" she demanded, her voice shaking. In that moment, a wave of emotions hit me. I felt a rush of guilt for not reacting quickly enough, frustration at the unexpected scene, and a deep concern for my wife's distress. "I'm sorry, I didn't expect that," I stammered, fumbling with the remote to pause the show. I was caught off guard. Her anger didn't subside. "You know how I feel about these scenes. How could you just sit there?" she cried. The pain in her voice was palpable, and it tore at my heart. I understood why she was upset, but I felt helpless in the face of her intense reaction. We turned off the TV, but the room was still charged with tension. My wife retreated to the bedroom, leaving me alone on the couch, grappling with a mix of guilt and confusion. I wanted to support her, but I also felt frustrated that a seemingly harmless activity had turned into a source of conflict. After giving her some time to cool down, I went to the bedroom, finding her sitting on the edge of the bed, tears streaming down her face. I sat down beside her, reaching out to hold her hand. "I'm really sorry," I said softly. "I didn't mean to hurt you." She pulled her hand away, her face a mix of anger and sadness. "It's not just about tonight," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's about feeling like I can't trust you to protect me from these things. It's about you not understanding how much it affects me." Her words stung, but I knew she was right. I had underestimated the depth of her trauma and how these triggers impacted her. "I do understand," I said, struggling to find the right words. "I know it's hard for you, and I want to do better. Can we talk about how we can handle this better in the future?" We sat in silence for a few moments, both of us trying to gather our thoughts. Finally, she spoke. "I just need you to be more aware," she said. "When we watch something new, you need to be ready to turn it off if something happens. I can't always be the one to notice it first." I nodded, understanding her need for reassurance and protection. "I can do that," I agreed. "We can also stick to shows we've checked thoroughly or even watch them separately first. I don't want you to feel this way every time we try to watch something." Our conversation that night was a mix of apologies and resolutions. We agreed that we needed to be more vigilant about the content we watched and to communicate more openly about our concerns. I promised to be more proactive in avoiding triggers, and she promised to try to communicate her needs more clearly. Despite our best intentions, the underlying issue remained. I could see that my wife was still struggling with her past trauma, and my attempts to avoid triggers were only addressing the symptoms, not the root cause. The incident with 3 Body Problem was a wake-up call that our current approach wasn't enough. We needed a more comprehensive solution. Over the next few days, we tried to move past the incident, but the tension lingered. Watching TV, an activity that was supposed to be relaxing and enjoyable, now felt like a minefield. I found myself on edge, constantly scanning for potential triggers, while my wife remained anxious and wary. One evening, I broached the subject of therapy. "I've been thinking," I began cautiously, "maybe we should consider seeing a therapist. This isn't just about TV shows. It's about your past trauma, and I think professional help could make a big difference." My wife looked at me, her eyes searching mine. "You really think therapy would help?" she asked, her voice tinged with both hope and skepticism. "I do," I replied. It's not just about avoiding triggers. It's about finding ways to heal and cope better. I want us to enjoy our time together without this constant fear. She nodded slowly, considering my words. Okay, she said finally. Let's try it. I don't want to keep living like this either. Avoiding shows with sexual content has significantly shaped our entertainment choices over the years. When we first started dating, we both enjoyed watching TV together as a way to unwind and spend quality time. However, as our relationship deepened and I learned more about my wife's past trauma, our viewing habits had to change. We became extremely selective about the shows we watched, prioritizing those that were unlikely to contain any scenes that could trigger her discomfort. This careful curation of our watch list means we often bypass some of the most popular and critically acclaimed shows. Series like Game of Thrones, Westworld, and even certain blockbuster movies are off the table. These shows, renowned for their intricate plots and rich character development, are also known for their explicit content. As a result, we stick to safer genres. Comedies, dramas without mature themes, documentaries, and family-friendly animations. While I understand the necessity of these precautions, there are times when I feel a sense of loss. I see friends and colleagues discussing the latest twists in Game of Thrones or the compelling narratives in shows like Westworld, and I can't help but feel left out. These shows have become cultural phenomena, and missing out on them feels like missing a part of the shared social experience. I sometimes wonder about the impact of these missed experiences on my own enjoyment and our shared interests. Although I'm not a huge TV consumer, I do appreciate well-crafted storytelling and engaging plots. It's hard not to feel a pang of regret when I hear about a particularly gripping series that I know we can't watch together. Even when I watch these shows alone, the experience feels incomplete without being able to share it with my wife. For my wife, the avoidance of such content is a necessary measure for her emotional well-being. Her past trauma from being sexually cheated on in a previous relationship has left deep scars. The infidelity involved her ex-partner and other physically attractive women, which led to a significant blow to her self-esteem. This betrayal has made her extremely sensitive to any depiction of attractive women or sexual content on screen. It's not just discomfort. These scenes trigger intense feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, and mistrust. She needs constant reassurance and security to feel safe and valued in our relationship. Whenever we encounter a scene with an attractive woman, she fears that I might find her less attractive in comparison. This fear is so profound that even brief glimpses of nudity or suggestive content can cause significant distress. She feels a need to protect herself from these triggers by avoiding any potential exposure altogether. From her perspective, the avoidance of such content is not just about controlling what we watch. It's about maintaining her sense of security and trust in our relationship. She worries that seeing these images might reignite her feelings of inadequacy and insecurity. This fear extends beyond just TV shows. It affects her daily life and interactions, making her feel vulnerable and constantly on edge. Our usual approach to selecting TV shows involves thorough research and pre-screening. We rely heavily on parental guides, reviews, and recommendations from trusted sources. This process is time-consuming but necessary to ensure we avoid any unexpected triggers. Despite our best efforts, there are times when something slips through, as it did with Three Body Problem, leading to tension and conflict. The constant vigilance required to avoid these triggers has taken a toll on both of us. For me, it means being perpetually on guard, ready to switch off the TV at the slightest hint of inappropriate content. This constant state of alertness makes it hard to fully relax and enjoy our time together. For my wife, it means living with the ever-present anxiety that something might slip through and upset her. We've tried various strategies to manage this issue, including watching episodes separately before viewing them together and sticking to genres that are less likely to contain explicit content. While these measures have helped to some extent, they are not foolproof. The underlying issue remains, and it's clear that our current approach is not sustainable in the long run. Reflecting on these challenges, I realize that simply avoiding certain shows is not a viable long-term solution. It addresses the symptoms but not the root cause of the problem. My wife's need for reassurance and security is deeply tied to her past trauma, and avoiding triggers can only do so much. We need a more comprehensive approach that addresses her underlying anxieties and helps her heal from her past. Our decision to explore therapy was driven by the recognition that we needed professional help to navigate this complex issue. Therapy offers the hope of finding healthier ways to cope with her trauma and improving our communication and understanding. Through therapy, we aim to build a stronger foundation of trust and support, allowing us to enjoy our time together without the constant fear of triggering her discomfort. In the end, our journey towards resolving this issue is about more than just finding a way to watch TV together. It's about strengthening our relationship, supporting each other's emotional well-being, and creating a future where both of us can feel secure and valued. As we move forward, we remain committed to working through these challenges together, with the hope that we can find a path that honors both our needs and brings us closer as a couple. Our decision to seek therapy was a pivotal moment in our journey to address my wife's trauma and the impact it had on our relationship. After the intense discussion following the incident with 3 body problem, we both realized that our current strategies were not enough. Avoiding shows with sexual content was a temporary fix, but it didn't address the root of the problem. We needed professional help to navigate these deep-seated issues and find a sustainable way forward. The process of finding the right therapist was meticulous. We wanted someone who specialized in trauma and relationship counseling. After researching and reading reviews, we chose a therapist who came highly recommended for her compassionate approach and expertise in dealing with similar issues. Booking that first appointment filled us with both anxiety and hope, as we were stepping into uncharted territory. During our initial therapy session, we sat in the therapist's office, a cozy room designed to make clients feel at ease. The therapist introduced herself warmly and invited us to share our story. We took turns explaining the challenges we'd been facing. My wife detailed her past trauma and its lasting effects, while I described the tension it created in our relationship and my internal conflict about avoiding certain TV shows. The therapist listened attentively, her empathetic nods encouraging us to open up. She asked insightful questions, helping us articulate feelings that had been difficult to express. For my wife, it was a relief to have her trauma acknowledged and validated by a professional. The therapist explained that her reactions were normal for someone who had experienced such betrayal and that our current situation was a common struggle for couples dealing with similar past wounds. In the following sessions, the therapist guided us through various exercises to better understand and manage the impact of my wife's trauma. One of the first techniques we learned was the use of a safe word. This word was a signal my wife could use whenever she felt uncomfortable or triggered by something on the screen. It allowed her to communicate her need to pause or stop the show without having to explain her feelings in the moment, reducing her anxiety and giving her a sense of control. We also explored grounding exercises that my wife could use when she felt overwhelmed. These techniques included deep breathing exercises, focusing on sensory details in the environment, and mindfulness practices. The goal was to help her stay present and calm, reducing the intensity of her reactions to triggers. Over time, she found these exercises helpful not just during TV watching but also in other areas of her life where anxiety surfaced. For me, the therapy sessions were enlightening. The therapist helped me understand the profound impact of my wife's trauma and why her reactions were so intense. She explained that my wife's need for reassurance was not about doubting my loyalty but about managing her own deep-seated fears and insecurities. This perspective shift allowed me to approach the situation with more empathy and patience. We also worked on improving our communication. The therapist emphasized the importance of open and honest conversations about our feelings and needs. She taught us techniques for active listening, where we would take turns speaking without interruption, ensuring that each of us felt heard and understood. These conversations were difficult at first, as they required us to be vulnerable and confront uncomfortable emotions, but they gradually became easier and more productive. Another significant aspect of our therapy was rebuilding trust. The therapist guided us through exercises designed to strengthen our emotional connection and trust in each other. One such exercise involved sharing positive affirmations daily, reminding each other of our love and commitment. This practice helped to reinforce the security in our relationship and provided my wife with the reassurance she needed. The therapist also encouraged us to redefine our entertainment choices together. Instead of focusing on what we couldn't watch, we began exploring new genres and shows that were safe and enjoyable for both of us. We discovered a shared love for mystery and adventure series, which provided excitement without the risk of triggering content. This shift in focus allowed us to reconnect and find joy in our shared viewing experiences. As we continued our therapeutic journey, we encountered setbacks. There were moments when old triggers resurfaced, causing tension and frustration. However, the tools and strategies we learned in therapy helped us navigate these challenges more effectively. We learned to approach setbacks with patience and understanding, viewing them as opportunities to grow and strengthen our relationship. One particularly impactful session involved revisiting the incident with three-body problem. The therapist asked us to recount the event and our feelings surrounding it. This exercise allowed us to see the incident from each other's perspectives more clearly. My wife expressed how the scene had reignited her fears of inadequacy and betrayal, while I shared my feelings of guilt and helplessness. This mutual understanding helped us find common ground and reaffirm our commitment to supporting each other. Another key strategy we learned was setting boundaries around our TV watching. We established rules such as only watching new shows together when we had ample time to discuss any issues that arose and pre-screening potentially risky content using online guides. We also decided to limit our viewing sessions to specific times when we both felt relaxed and free from other stresses, ensuring that our shared time was as enjoyable as possible. Through therapy, we also explored the deeper implications of my wife's trauma on our daily lives. The therapist helped my wife work through her feelings of inadequacy, guiding her to rebuild her self-esteem and sense of self-worth. This process involved individual therapy sessions focused on her personal growth and healing, complementing our joint sessions. For me, therapy provided a space to address my feelings of loss and frustration. The therapist helped me understand that it was okay to feel deprived of certain experiences and that these feelings didn't diminish my commitment to my wife. We worked on finding a balance where I could enjoy certain shows on my own while prioritizing our shared viewing experiences. This compromise allowed me to feel more fulfilled without compromising my wife's emotional well-being. As our therapy sessions progressed, we noticed significant improvements in our relationship. Our communication became more open and honest, and the tension around TV watching began to dissipate. My wife felt more secure and less anxious, and I felt more equipped to support her. We both gained a deeper understanding of each other's needs and how to navigate our challenges together. One of the most valuable outcomes of therapy was the realization that our relationship could grow stronger through adversity. By facing our issues head-on and seeking professional help, we were able to transform a source of conflict into an opportunity for growth and connection. Therapy taught us that it's possible to heal from past traumas and build a healthier, more resilient relationship. In conclusion, our therapeutic journey was a transformative experience that helped us address my wife's trauma and the impact it had on our relationship. Through professional guidance, we learned effective strategies to manage triggers, improve communication, and rebuild trust. While the road to healing was challenging, the progress we made was a testament to our commitment to each other. With the tools we gained from therapy, we are better equipped to face future challenges and continue building a strong, supportive partnership. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Caught my wife having an affair with a friend. Now facing the decision to divorce. Need advice on moving forward. I'm a 42-year-old guy and my wife is 43. We've been married since we were 19, and next year will mark our 25th anniversary. We have 3 daughters, a 19-year-old who's away at college and twin 15-year-olds. Most things at home seem pretty normal. My wife has always had her own job and individual interests like yoga and pottery, which is cool. I have my own hobbies too, but lately, something has felt off for the past few months. It's hard to put a finger on it, but there's this underlying disturbance. Sometimes she seems a bit more distant, even during close moments. We still have our regular weekend morning lovemaking, but it feels like her mind is elsewhere. It's like she's physically there in our marriage, but emotionally not fully present. I've asked her if something is bothering her, but every time she says no. I wouldn't immediately suspect infidelity, but I've noticed that she's been spending more time alone outside the house in the past few months, maybe around 6 months. She's been busy, but she used to be so upbeat, energetic, and almost giddy. About 3 or more weeks ago, things took a different turn. My wife started being around the house much more, but she seemed distant. Now she comes up to my office and hangs out with me, but she's constantly sad. It's like she wants to be around me all the time, which I appreciate, but her behavior is starting to worry me a bit. The strange thing is that our twins are also acting strange. They've become unusually sweet to me, offering to help with chores like taking out the trash, which is not their usual behavior. It's as if they all know something that I don't, like I have some sort of illness or something, and I'm completely clueless. Their odd yet affectionate behavior started a few weeks ago, around the same time my wife's behavior changed. 2 months ago, I happened to look at our Verizon bill and noticed a ton of texts between my wife and an unknown number. When I asked her about it, she claimed it was one of her girlfriends. However, when I checked her phone, there were no texts with that number at all. I questioned her again, and she said she had deleted them to save space, but I didn't see any other threads deleted. The past 6 months have been strange, but the past 3 weeks have been even more bizarre. Yesterday, I made the decision to call my oldest daughter. I shared with her everything I mentioned in my initial post, and she assured me that she would talk to her sisters. You see, the twins really look up to her and are a bit scared of her when she gets mad. This morning, she called me back and said she had spoken to the twins. She's coming home this Friday for the weekend so we can have a proper conversation. I told her that I can't handle being left hanging like this, as it's too much for my heart to bear. I pleaded with her to tell me what's going on. She mentioned that it's bad, but it could have been worse. She reassured me not to worry and explained that Friday is the earliest she can come home to talk. She did mention that there's some good news amidst the bad. However, the twins made her promise to keep it a secret. It's important to note that my wife and the twins are unaware that our oldest daughter is coming home this weekend, and she explicitly told me not to inform them. She was very firm about that. I apologize for not having much of an update to share. It seems like I'll have to wait until Friday to find out more. Some of the responses I've received here and other threads I've read have left me terrified. It feels like stories like mine never end happily. I'm fearing the worst, thinking that my wife might have had an affair and the twins are aware of it. My daughter was being cryptic during our phone call and clearly wants to discuss this matter in person rather than over the phone. It turns out that the person my wife had an affair with wasn't a coworker or someone from her hobbies. Shockingly, it was a friend of ours, the husband of one of the couples we were close with. Needless to say, he will never be considered a friend again, and I'm determined to let his wife know about what happened. The twins caught my wife with him when she was supposed to be at yoga. They were extremely upset and confronted her about it. She assured them that she had no intention of leaving me or anything like that. According to her, it was just a fling. They both enjoyed the thrill of being like teenagers, secretly dating and sneaking around. She didn't realize the devastating impact it would have. What she has put the twins through is almost unforgivable. As soon as the twins exposed the affair, my wife ended it immediately. She had planned on keeping the secret for the rest of her life. She told the girls that she should carry the guilt and that if she told me, it would alleviate her guilt but completely crush me, which it has. The girls agreed and they were all set on keeping this secret. However, my oldest daughter became furious with all of them. She went off on them in anger. I'm still processing everything that has happened. I packed a bag and left, causing my wife to break down and cry on the floor. I turned off the location services on my phone and drove about an hour away to a cabin in one of our state parks. Right now, I don't feel like talking to anyone. Only my oldest daughter knows where I am. She came to visit me today and we had a good conversation. She expressed that it's not surprising for her mother to do something like this because she's always been a predictable stereotype. My wife tends to follow trends, whether it's yoga, essential oils, CBD, or any new shiny thing that comes along. She gets obsessed with it. Now, in her middle age, she's just becoming another stereotype. The twins are angry at their mother and worried that I won't come back home. Honestly, I'm not sure if I will either. Right now, I don't really want to talk to them either. My oldest daughter said she'll come home as soon as her semester is over and make their lives miserable. She had to leave a couple of hours ago to go back to school, and now the sadness is setting in. Here I am, a middle-aged guy sitting alone in a cabin, thinking I had my life all planned out, but now everything is uncertain. I probably won't post about this again. I'm gonna stay here for as long as I can afford it and figure out my next steps. Update 1. I asked my wife to leave and give me some space. However, she responded with determination, saying, "No, I won't abandon our beautiful life and love just because of my stupid mistake. I'll fight for us with every ounce of strength I have and make things right. We can overcome this. I'm incredibly sorry, and words can't fully express how sorry I am. Please come home and let me fix this together. There's nothing we can't do. That's just how she is. It's always been her nature to be stubborn, so I'm unsure of what to do. I genuinely need some space. Staying at this cabin has been really therapeutic, especially with its amazing hiking trails. However, I know it's only a temporary solution, and I eventually have to go back home. But I also know my wife. With the way she expressed herself, it would take an act of God to make her leave. On top of that, she won't give me the space I need if I go back home. She'll overwhelm me with her love and incessantly try to wear me down until I go along with whatever plan she has in mind. Frankly, I'd rather stay away for a while. I need to be mentally prepared to withstand her onslaught of affection and rationalization because she's an expert in that. She's always reading those self-help and motivational books and browse websites filled with that kind of stuff. I made sure to pay for the cabin in cash for a week so that my wife wouldn't be able to track me down if I used a credit card. I already received emails notifying me that someone used a different device to access my credit card accounts. Both of them. It's definitely her. I knew if I paid with a credit card, she would look it up and try to find me. I also had a conversation with the twins, assuring them that they were in a difficult situation, but it wasn't their fault. I made sure to let them know that their dad loves them. They mentioned that on Friday, Mom was a complete mess, crying uncontrollably. However, by late Saturday, she seemed to shift into her, "I can fix this, we will overcome" mindset. Supposedly, she's been reading everything she can find online about repairing a marriage after infidelity. That's just how she is. She tends to obsess over things. Personally, I just need more time alone to process everything. Update 2. I used to commute back and forth from the cabin for work, but luckily we're all working remotely now. It's actually a relief because I'm about 100 miles away from home. I've been allowing my wife to have a short phone call with me each night just to let everyone know that I'm okay. But honestly, I don't want to be bothered. I prefer communicating with my daughters through text messages. It surprises me how many young people don't realize that smartphones can actually be used for making phone calls. Anyway, here's the thing. I know deep down that I can't forgive my wife, but honestly, I don't see a way for me to stay in this marriage and still maintain my pride as a man. Call me stubborn or bullheaded, but my pride as a man is important to me. I've been racking my brain trying to figure out how to keep that pride and stay in this marriage, but it feels like those two things are incompatible. If I want to hold on to my pride, then I have to divorce her because her actions have been a serious betrayal of our marriage and me. But if I choose to stay in the marriage, it means surrendering my pride as a man, and I don't think I can live like that. I don't even want to have a discussion with my wife about this because she has a way of twisting things around and making me agree with her logic within an hour. Have you ever met someone who seems to always get their way with everyone? Well, that's her. My best friend told me that as a guy in good shape, making decent money, and being nice, I'll have plenty of options with women our age. Honestly though, I think I'd prefer to be alone and live a somewhat selfish life for a while. I want to do what I want, eat what I want, go wherever I please, and not have to worry about anyone else. Unfortunately, my time at the cabin is coming to an end. I've been trying to find an apartment to rent, but it's tougher than I expected due to the ongoing virus situation. I told my wife that there's no way for me to stay with her and still maintain my dignity. I explained that if I stayed, I wouldn't be the man she claimed to love. It would just make me feel broken and resentful, lacking any sense of dignity. I made it clear that we can't continue living like that. She responded by saying we can work things out and that I'm the only man she loves. I replied that obviously our marriage isn't great if she did what she did. After a conversation, we both agreed that it's time to go our separate ways. I also spoke with my heartbroken twins, assuring them that I love them and will always be there for them. After deep reflection, I've realized that I can't stay with someone who betrayed me in such a way. My self-respect and dignity are important to me, and I would lose both if I stayed in the relationship. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Brother called me a slut at a barbecue, so my husband knocked him out and my parents want me to divorce him or cut me off, but turns out brother was jealous of my happy marriage. Hello everyone. This past weekend, me and my husband were over at my parents' house for a barbecue. The day was going great until my brother, for some reason, started to have a go at me, calling me names and belittling me. My husband pulled my brother aside and had a talk with him, and the insults stopped. An hour or so later, we were standing around talking with some friends and family members, and my brother came up to me and told me I'm a slut. His exact words were, "You know you were a slut, right?" He said it loud enough for almost everyone at the party to hear. All I saw was my husband next to me look at me. Then I felt a push to the side, my husband stepping in front of me, and the next thing was my brother out cold on the ground with blood on his face. All I heard is my mother yelling and my husband saying, "You don't talk to my wife like that. I warned you already." Before I continue, my husband didn't hurt me. He didn't push me hard or anything like that. Don't know how to describe it, but it was like a push that someone will give you when they are trying to pass. I went like one step back, that is all. I am not mad at my husband. I'm mad at my brother. The whole day he was demeaning me, insulting me, belittling me. Don't know where this came from, as he has never talked to me like that or to anyone that I know of. The bigger problem I have at that, I have to choose either my husband or my parents. My parents are pissed and have given me an ultimatum. I either leave my husband and divorce him, or they cut me off completely. My husband doesn't give a crap that they are mad. The only thing he is mad about it that he only got one punch, in his words. I love my husband and don't want to lose him, but I also don't want to lose my parents. They have supported me through a lot and have always been there for me. I know they are serious, as this is the first time they have ever issued me with an ultimatum. They also threaten my husband with assault charge, but he doesn't care and welcome them to do it. I'm stuck between a decision that will change my life forever and I'm panicking. I have received messages for friends and other family members that have given me support and condemned my husband, but they are leaning more on the support side. Any advice will be appreciated. Edit to clarify. I am to choosing my husband. I have never questioned that, but I also don't want to lose my family. I am very family-oriented and family to me is everything. I want to find a solution where I can keep both. Comments where Op has replied. Commenter 1. Info: why do your parents think it's okay that your brother called you names? What is their excuse? Oop. They haven't excused his actions, but they are condemning my husband for resorting to violence. Commenter 2. What kind of family does this stuff? It sounds very dysfunctional. What were the circumstances whereby your brother goes off on you like that? Now your parents issue an ultimatum? I appreciate that your husband stuck up for you, but that was a terrible political move. Oop. One thing about my husband, he is sweet and gentle, but he has never cared what someone else thinks about him other than me and his own mother. Update 1. November 5th, 2024. First, I would like to thank everyone and I want to apologize as well for the way I worded my post. It's no excuse, but my emotional state isn't the best. My husband is my choice, and I have no intentions of leaving him at all. Never had. I know it's early for an update, but I'm more confused now about what is going on. My parents invited me over to have a talk with them, but they wanted me to come alone, as they didn't want my husband at their house. My husband refused to let me go alone and said if he isn't going, then he won't allow me to. He basically said, with you alone there, they will just pile on you and that I won't let happen. So we went together. My parents wasn't happy to see him and my mother wanted to say something until my husband told her he isn't there for them. But me, and if he is forced to leave, I will leave with him. I agreed with him reluctantly. They agreed. My brother was there as well. He has a broken nose and chipped teeth and refused to look at me or my husband. He just kept looking at the ground, even while talking. Apparently, what happened with my brother is that he broke up with his girlfriend a month ago. It's more like she broke up with him. Don't know the reason, don't care. I wasn't aware of this as we aren't close like that. According to him, the reason he had a go at me this weekend is because my life, according to him, my perfect life with my husband, kept popping up on his feeds and he got jealous. Everything on my social media is with my husband. I don't really use it for anything else, but his feed was full of my posts and that set him off as I had something that he didn't. It got worse when he overheard me and my mother talking when I had a discussion with her over children. Me and my husband is currently trying to have a baby, and that just made everything worse in his head. His life was falling apart and mine was going perfectly, and I had and was trying for have what he wanted with his ex. He said he didn't take my husband seriously when he pulled him aside and my husband warned him. I seriously don't know why he went after me, as nothing he said was true in any sense, and I did ask him why he said those things. He refused to answer me. I asked him why he commented because he knows my husband was my first in everything and it has only been him all these years. He refused to answer. I asked him if trying to have a baby with my husband makes me a slut as it involves sex, and he just left the room. I asked my parents why they didn't step in and tell my brother to leave or stop. My dad said he wanted to, but my mother told him to leave my brother be as he is not actually hurting anyone. The same with the ultimatum, they wanted to protect my brother. I asked what about me and they were silent. All my father said was the ultimatum was my mother's idea and he went along with it. This is basically where we are at the moment. A lot more was said, but I don't think it matters. My husband did apologize to my parents for what happened but refused to apologize to my brother. When my mother asked him to apologize to my brother, he outright said no. He won't apologize for standing up for me, and my brother got what he deserved. He was warned and didn't listen. My mother said it still doesn't excuse him for hitting my brother. My husband asked my dad what will he do if someone called his wife a slut. My father said, I will have a talk with that person, but will never hit someone. My husband laughed and told my dad he is a weak-willed, spineless man if he allows someone to demean his wife like that. That got my mom red in the face. I could see her get angry. That is when I told my husband it's time to leave. I told my parents that I will be going low contact with them, and the ultimatum they gave me broke the trust one had in them. I understand they wanted to protect my brother, but in doing that, they hurt me. This seemed to take all the anger out of my mother. They asked if I will be cutting them out completely, and I told them that is up to them. I don't want anything to do with my brother at the moment, as he can't even apologize for what he said to me. I told them if they can respect my wishes, we will see. When we got up to leave, my husband went over to my parents and actually still greeted them politely, but told my dad it's time grow a backbone. I don't know what I saw, but I think it was shame in my mother's face because my dad looked at my mother and she looked away from him. This is where we are at the moment. My husband, on the way back home, apologized for possibly escalating things but told me it was time someone told my dad the truth. He said whatever punishment comes, he will take and deal with any fallout. I don't need to worry or stress about anything. Edit. Brother's ex cheated on him and apparently he begged her to fix things, but she chose the other guy and now he is just pissed and angry at every woman and believe we will all do that eventually. Got a message from my cousin. The family had a go at my parents for allowing my brother to talk to me the way he did, and they came clean as to why he did what he did but couldn't do it when I was over and we talked. They couldn't be honest with me and just refused to answer. Additional information from Oop. Honestly, really thinking about it, the only person I have felt genuine unconditional love and support from is my husband. There are a lot of things I just swept under the rug and thought it was siblings things, but looking back, whenever my brother had a difficult time, it was taken out on me in some way and my parents have never stuck up for me. My husband has had my back around every corner and had never thrown things in my face like my parent or brother has. Oop on her parents' relationship and why they are not hearing her out. My father just follows what my mother said. On my 26 years of life, I have never seen my dad go against my mother with anything. Anything she says or want to do it fine with him, no matter the cost. For instance, my dad basically has no friends as my mother didn't like them, so he gave them up and hasn't made new friends because when he tried, my mother finds something she doesn't like about that person and he agrees. Oop should have gone alone to talk with her parents and brother about her husband's behavior. So I should take the way he worded it over the fact that he wanted to be there and make sure I'm not getting gaslight? I took it as he want to ensure I'm safe and what happens doesn't happen again. My wording is bad as my emotional state isn't the best. That is on me and I should have probably double-checked everything before posting, but his emotional state can't be any better than mine. He is dealing with everything, and on top of that, he is trying his best to keep my mood up. I know it sounded bad, but I took what he said with all the other actions he took so far to keep me safe. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.